for a number of reasons, right? Taking a deep breath is, first and foremost, it's a great reminder of how to take something that's in your subconscious and bring it to your consciousness and remind your nervous system that you have the ability to be able to do that at any time. And that can be an allegory for a lot of the different conversations that we're going to have tonight. But in the attempt to do that, we'll just sort of like count it out really quickly, take one deep breath, we'll let go, and then we will get this podcast episode started. So, 1, 2, 3. Welcome to the Unscripted Room. This is episode 7. It's the beginning of a series of episodes that will be related to the trust portions of our community values. And tonight is all about bonds with nature. And we get the opportunity as a group to be able to explore how has our relationship with nature affected our relationship with ourselves, our relationship that we have with others. What have we learned from observing from nature that gives us a greater insight into anything, you know? So we're going to get this kicked off by having you read our first question, and then we'll go from there.
Excellent. This is legitimately sealed well here, too.
Spare no expense for you over there, you know what I mean? Wax seals, the whole...
Do you actually have a ring to do that with?
It's a bit of a cheater one because it's a sticker, and you have a ring to kind of like more, yeah.
Gotcha.
If it was an actual wax seal, I don't think we'd have the time based on how many envelopes we're doing.
That's true.
It's a clever cheat.
So the question is, what has nature taught you about life? That's a big one.
Mm-hmm. We can start smaller than that. You know what I mean? We can dial it back and then try to get up to that question if we want to. But what's the first thing that comes to mind for you when you think about how nature has affected your life?
It's like breathing for me, being outside, and it's usually accompanied by movement, but it's like water and air in terms of feeding my soul, I guess.
Is it the animals? Is it what are you seeing that is feeding your soul? Because I think a lot of people feel that way when they're out in nature, like it instantly connects them to something larger than themselves.
Yeah, and for me, it's not animals so much, although some are cute, and I love seeing the dogs and patting dogs and stuff like that. No, it's more either crisp air or a smell or, trees, flowers, things like that, mountains, being out on the ocean. It's sort of all of it, but it's more environmental, I guess, for me, and multi-sensory as well.
Yeah. Well, especially even in New England, I think all of us go through the same thing where it's like you get to the end of a winter and the second you can get out into the sunshine, it's like you can literally feel like the vitamin D recharging your body. I mean, it's amazing how much we take for granted the balance that it brings into our life. You know what I mean? How when you're in nature more often, how much more imbalance you can feel just generally chemically in your own body for sure.
Yeah, just listening to Mary's sharing that experience takes me back to school, like grade school, and how I went to parochial school. So you had to kind of wear the uniform and the tie. And I just remember the desire to come home and just shed that all those clothes and be outside. It was something that lasted from from my first memories of grade school to my oldest ones of senior year in high school, like getting home, getting outside, jumping on our bikes, racing around through cornfields on
playing
somebody's
manhunt.
dirt bike, playing manhunt. Yeah. Like all of that. It's like, for me, it was like I was enduring all these other things so that I could get to the sweet spot every day, as a kid. And I don't think that ever really changed. I mean, I still thrive on that. And I've always been one to say, this idea of like stopping to smell the roses is like not something just for the weekends. It's like every moment of life. Like, and maybe I take more of those moments than I should, but it's part of who I am.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Is it possible to take more moments than you should to stop and smell the roses?
There's
know.
never
Or
too
go
many
outside and-
moments.
But so the reason I say that is because I can look at other people who have maybe prioritized the prep for the meeting,
Yeah.
putting that extra FaceTime in with their boss or their boss's boss, or going out with the team a little longer for drinks or whatever.
Mhm.
Some of those people did go further. And so, but for me, it's a comfortable decision. Like, I just feel like I made a choice.
Yeah.
And that choice really fueled my soul. So there really wasn't a choice,
You know what's
if that
interesting?
makes sense.
Sometimes watching nature, I have a deck that I sit out on all the time, and it overlooks these rooftops, and there's these, I've talked about it on the podcast before, but there's these sparrows that are flying all the time, and I had never really gotten the time to like watch sparrows, but just watching the way that they fly and the formations and the way that they play with each other, I have learned more about things that I wanted to bring into the podcast from that observation than I would have if I was preparing for the podcast.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like just sitting back and being like, okay, I don't need to try so hard. I just need to allow myself to observe something completely. And maybe there's a pattern in everything that applies to the next pattern that you need to go and be immersed in if you can just slow down and allow it to kind of like catch you at that right moment.
Yeah.
So I'm not denying, I mean, I think everybody would agree like preparation is important. If you're going to do a job, you should make sure that you're prepared to go do that job. But sometimes slowing down is the best way to be prepared to do a job well. Sometimes just rushing in and doing the same thing over and over again, just gives you the same results. Whereas if you can slow down, you can see this different perspective. And then all of a sudden you get a chance to kind of go in there with a new idea that nobody would have ever,
Yeah. I can relate to that totally.
I think it's what
Yeah.
makes people free spirited. It's what makes interesting ideas emerge from that for sure.
Yeah, I would say I'm thinking about this time I went to Argentina. It was a study abroad program, and we went up to the north. There's a big national park. It's like in the Amazons, and there's a place called the Throat of the Devil. There's a Spanish name that I cannot recall right now, but it was so massive. Like the river itself is so massive. I mean, it's like you have to walk like 2 kilometers. Like it's huge, right? And you get to the end of it, and there's this massive chasm which is filling up with an enormous amount of water, and it goes down so far. Like people are like this big, and it was enormous. In that moment I was like, wow, we are so small.
Yeah.
We are so tiny, and like the damage that we can cause is great, but we are still so tiny, and just to see the scale of like what the earth can make, like what is out there, what nature can be, was very, very striking.
What were the feelings that you had while you were watching that? Because it sounds like you were witnessing something that was clearly bigger than yourself.
I was like in awe. I was I was breathless. I was like amazed and just fully kind of letting myself be in that situation and like experiencing the rising mist and the deafening sound, just the entirety of that. The energy was like insane. Yeah, I feel like I can still feel that energy coming from that waterfall. So
One of the things that like what you're saying is making me think about is that we've almost domesticated nature in so many ways, you know what I mean? Where we live in these very comfortable homes. If the weather turns bad, we definitely have a place to, for the most part, you have a place to go. You have all of these sort of comforts that we've created that sometimes you forget how fucking badass nature is.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like
It is
sometimes you got to get
crazy.
out into it
Yeah.
and realize that it will whoop your ass if you're
Oh,
not
yeah.
like super careful and thoughtful about it all the time.
Mhm.
You know, anybody who's a hunter or anybody who's going deep out into the woods or needs to navigate something, these are people who do not take that for granted because they understand that you know, you can lose your life in no time in nature, and nature is not, it's not cartoons, it's
Mm.
brutal.
It's real.
Mm.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
So it's so interesting every once in a while to go and be around something where like the force of the water that's coming in is so great, the sound that it's making, and you're just like, wow, that is, you know, that's 100% nature showing us its power at any given time.
Yeah, and I had a moment like that. I remember a moment where I felt that same awe that Maya's describing, where the first time that I was at the Grand Canyon, it was like a cross-country trip with my girlfriend from college, and we just arrived at the north rim of the Grand Canyon, and we were like walking across the parking lot, and you just kind of start to see the, you know, the expanse of the canyon start just opening up and kind of opening up in front of you as you're walking. And I remember we stopped and I was whispering. I was like whispering to her about like what we were seeing. And it was almost like I was, you know, I felt like I was in a church or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just a really,
You know.
I must have been struck by that awe. And I kind of caught myself and I said, why am I whispering? But it was just, again, it was like when you understand the scale of our lives against just what is, you know, happened over millions of years, hundreds of millions of years. It's awe-inspiring. It's humbling.
Yeah.
And you're right. We are small, and nature doesn't care about our struggle, you know?
And it is our struggle. And nature is also like a beautiful allegory for us. You know what I mean? Like we have all of those same things inside. Now, I don't mean that as a. I mean, I enjoy having spiritual conversations, and I do mean it to some degree as a spiritual side. But I mean, literally, we have systems in our body that mimic a lot of the systems that we can see in nature. The way that nature works is very much in line with the way that the body works. I mean, there's so many things that if you go out and you just observe, that becomes this amazing tapestry for understanding not only how nature works, but also how we work. And, you know, it's an experience at any given time if you slow down and you smell those roses, right? But if you don't do that, you could literally, I mean, I've also been to the Grand Canyon before, and there's some parts of it that are so touristy, you know, that you go in and you're like trapped in RV lanes and, you know, and just like masses of people moving around. And in those times, I personally found it to be very, very difficult to actually focus on the beauty of what nature was.
Yeah.
And then there were other times where I was able to maybe get a little further off the beaten path in those kinds of environments. And you're like,
Yeah.
you can feel it.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe that's even worth examining.
That's a really cool thing that you mentioned, though, about how like we're connecting on some level. It's beyond spiritual, right? With nature. And like, and I'll probably butcher this, but I know there's a Japanese researcher who's done some pretty credible studies around how our immune systems are actually bolstered by spending, you know, an hour or 2 hours in the woods. So go to the woods. And I think there's some kind of, there's these compounds that are given off by trees called phytoncides. I have to have Oliver look that one up. But,
The Wizard of Oz will jump on and tell us.
But it's like these compounds are actually being excreted by trees, and the trees use them to they're like antimicrobial. So they keep microorganisms and, you know, things from attacking the trees and their bark. And when we consume those, we breathe those in. It bolsters our immune system. It lowers our blood pressure.
Yeah.
It increases our killer cells, the NK cells or something like that. But anyway, I'm going way overboard. But
you're like, from what I'm seeing, that's exactly correct. NK cells.
Yeah.
So it's really cool.
But it's fascinating that, and then this there's a halo effect. It lasts for a couple of weeks, so we have like these elevated levels of kind of immunoresponse in a very positive way, right?
Yeah.
We have these higher level of NK cells, and that's incredible. And I just learned about that maybe in the last couple of years,
Yeah.
like during the pandemic, like post-pandemic, because we went to the woods, like we went to the mountains during all that.
Yeah.
That was our like way of dealing with the
Yeah. I
hysteria.
did too. Yeah.
It's cool that science is starting to just back up our anecdotal feelings anyways. Like everybody who goes and takes a walk in the woods, they're like, I feel better. And now everybody's coming back and they're like, but seriously, like you're breathing in bark and that's turning this into this. And it's,
Yeah. They even say to eat outside, I think, and that bolsters also your immunity.
Yes.
But following our intuition is also like we just naturally kind of know that being outside and eating outside, it feels good. And then it ends up like the science is also backing up that it is good. It's this amazing kind of balance between those.
It is. Yeah. It's great. And think about how everyone took to the outdoors out of sort of necessity during the pandemic, right? Because you could go out there and you take off your mask to eat. But that opened up, like in my town in Ipswich, now all of these restaurants that never had outdoor eating, seating are now doing it. It's like and it's just so much better. I mean, it gives you these choices. I mean, sometimes I would much rather, if it's not greenhead season, totally want to eat outside.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. One of the things that we, that Oliver and I were talking about before you guys came in today was we posed the question to ourselves, is there any part of nature that's not in balance?
And I think there definitely is.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, you talked about choices you made and getting out and not spending more time at work, maybe over getting home and getting outside or whatever.
Right.
I sort of chose a long work day, but I had to get out in the morning for my run. Like that was just being outside and moving was really essential.
Yeah.
But, a lot of times, maybe because of where I was at or whatever, I was, you're running in a city or you're running in places that, maybe they're not that pretty, but you're at least outside.
Yeah.
So, but is it all balanced and all of that? Back to what you were just saying, I don't think all of nature's.
Well, what we were exploring was that it seems like humans have the ability to be imbalanced. That seems like a for sure thing, you know what I mean? That we can get ourselves out of balance. We can start to gravitate towards chaos instead of gravitating towards peace, you know what I mean? It's finding that midground. But nature doesn't seem to have that, you know what I mean? Like a bee always knows what to pollinate and where to go. Birds have very similar patterns that they're following. A beaver knows exactly what it needs to do to be able to, to create different landscapes by damming up a river and forcing that water to go places that it hadn't been, previously for the last 50 years.
It's true.
And I'm just fascinated by the idea of as a panel, could we really try to think about the idea? Could we even imagine a circumstance within nature where nature by itself doesn't allow for balance to exist?
Well, I definitely can. The thing about nature is that, I mean, there's always species that are going extinct or taking over. That's been happening since the conception of life, and like all of the atmosphere that we have right now is a result of microorganisms in the ocean converting the atmosphere, which then killed all of these other creatures that were living in that system of harmony. There's an interesting thing with the wolves in Yellowstone, right, where the wolves were going extinct, right, which I think was, in this example, that began with something that was human caused, but the fact that the wolves were not at the correct population size meant that the deer were getting to be at a much larger population than they should be at. And so then all of these other plants were getting eaten more than they should, which is really fascinating. So when they added in the apex predator back into this ecosystem, it actually started to make everything thrive, which is really fascinating. And so in that example, humans had driven out this predator, but systems in nature are always in a constant sort of like equilibrium or switching into chaos. Like when the cycle of the earth that brings around the ice age comes, that is massively disrupting to the balance of so many systems, and then they have to find a new balance eventually, and they do. But things slide in and out of equilibrium like that.
Yeah. And you're describing long-term changes, right? But there is nothing more imbalanced than birth and death, right? So nature may
Good
need
example.
things to die to have rebirth. So that, that I'm not saying that that's not imbalance, but if you stretch it out over a long enough period of time, you might also be able to find an argument that nature does balance, only you have to use time as your measuring stick for what balance looks like.
It does do a really good job of it regulates itself. If we have a very wet winter, then there's ramifications around mosquitoes and when the mosquitoes appear and
Yeah.
and when things start to bloom or if they don't bloom. And it's like I feel like I see it more and more because I really do enjoy the 4 seasons. So I'm like, the perfect world would be where each season is most, except for summer. You want that to last a little longer, but you want them to all have their time and their weight. And some years, like fall goes by like that.
Yeah.
And then, but you see, then nature will respond. It'll so there's an impact in the spring.
Yeah.
That you'll see. So, but Oliver, I saw that study about the wolves. It's really fascinating. It that just reintroducing them, it creates that balance in that ecosystem. But it's interesting. It's like, well, we're part of it. So this is a park, and it's not really representative of the wild, but it's as close to the wild as it's probably going to get.
Yeah.
But then you have someone who's literally outside of that boundary of that park, who could be a rancher, and they're struggling because they're shooting at wolves, and so it really is fascinating. It's like these things that seem so simple when you're a kid, when I was a kid, have become pretty complex issues. Like what should we do with the wolves? In Ipswich, there's a place called Wolf Hollow where they raise wolves from
Famous.
pups.
Yeah.
And I've sponsored wolf there, and my kids did that as a gift for me one year for my birthday. And it's a beautiful thing to see wildlife in its own life cycle. Then, like, I'll go to Montana, and my son's already sort of talking the narrative of the ranchers there, because his friends in college are, that's what their parents did, and they're like struggling to keep their livestock safe. It's being decimated by wolves and coyotes, and you're like, our perspective is really so subjective and delicate,
Well, I think we have to be really honest, right? Like, I respect predators unless I'm their prey.
Yeah.
And then I'd rather not be prey. You know what I mean? So, like, and the other side of every single time we have ever introduced animals into an ecosystem, like we take a predator and put it into an ecosystem, it does usually work for a short amount of time. And then that predator usually takes over that ecosystem. And then we have to add something else to try to, right? So it's always time. Time
hunting
is
pythons down in Florida.
Oh
for
my God,
example.
we could talk about that for a whole podcast.
I
That is so
know.
fascinating and such a
Is that for
massive.
the hogs? No.
That's another one too.
Oh, is that
Yeah.
a different story?
Well, do you know that you want to take the python?
Well, just the python. They introduced the python to the area, and they've proliferated so much that now they're bringing
just
people in
everywhere.
to hunt them down. They have hunting days and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and challenges and things like that to wrestle them and kill them.
Yeah.
And there's bounties on them, right? Like
Yeah.
people get paid
They're getting paid.
for how many they kill and collect.
I don't know if this is interesting or ironic, but they're also extremely hard to find because they burrow and they blend and they, so like these are huge predatory animals, but like they can't find them even if you give them a reward to go do it. But the way that they have figured out of all the technology, I mean, they were using helicopters and all kinds of LiDAR and all kinds of stuff. And then what they figured out actually worked was they started raising hunting dogs to understand the scent of pythons. And now they're actually making some headway in eradicating the pythons because these dogs love hunting pythons. And so they just figure out how to go out and do it.
Oh,
You know what's another funny one?
It's wild.
When I was in Hawaii, I can't remember what the original species was, but there was some species that had become an invasive species on Oahu because of trade. And so then they brought over, I believe it was mongoose, and it might have been some kind of snakes, probably, knowing mongoose. They brought over mongoose as a way to try and like tackle this new issue. But they overlooked one small detail, which was that one of the creatures was nocturnal and one of them was diurnal, and so they never encountered each other, and they just had two invasive species.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it actually, I would say that it could be part of our conversation in trying to evaluate whether nature stays in balance, and because we have free will, that we might be the part of nature that has the ability to be able to throw it out of balance.
We do. I mean,
Yeah.
like today I turned on the news and it was like wildfire after like a storm, after like things just being destroyed everywhere in the world. I'm like, well, we did this. We probably did this. And like, I don't know if there's any turning back. I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's too late now. We can't do anything else. But I think also people don't want to say that either because it's not, I don't know, it's not part of human nature to be like, oh, let's just give up, right? Like usually people will try to find a solution. But I think at this point, at this scale, it is so unimaginable that like it would literally have to be like everybody doing that. Everybody like working to every country's like priority is to fix the situation we are in currently. But nobody's doing that. They're like doing wars and stuff. They're like, oh, like wars are profitable, like oil. Like, guys, stop. This is a problem. Like, we are in a situation right now and we need to solve this because it's not going to get better. It doesn't look like it's going to get better. And like you were saying, like we're at a critical juncture right now. You know, people want change. People need change because the way that we've been doing things, the way that our production, our industry has been behaving is like unlimited exploitation, unlimited consumption of resources. This is unlimited because it's all about profit.
Yeah.
And it just extracts and extracts until there's nothing left. And there will be nothing left for for our children's there will be nothing left. And it will be our fault for there not being anything left. It'll be like a waste zone.
Can you imagine if you were nature and you were like
I'd
just
be so pissed.
you were just
Oh my
observing
gosh.
you were just observing
I'll be like,
humanity?
"Why?"
You'd be like, hold on, wait a second, guys. I'm pretty sure that I gave you trees to be able to like absorb what you need to expel, and then I turn that into oxygen and I give it back to you. So like, could we just like find some balance here? Could we not, could you like, it's okay. Sometimes you got to insert yourself into nature. But there's plenty of room for us to be able to do that without being assholes.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, look at all
there
the
is.
people building homes on a beach that's disappearing or something like that because they want a house on the water. I mean, that's the mentality that you're dealing with when you talk about the problems. I think is humans want what they want, and they'll fight or try to fight even if they don't win in that situation.
It's true.
I do think we should remember right now, though, because I think that there's so much. Like you said, turn on the news. As soon as you said turn on the news, I knew that you were about to say something that was incredibly negative.
Right, yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah.
maybe that's true, maybe that's not true. I have this moment that I remember. It's a parenting moment, not necessarily to do with nature, but as my son started to get old enough to start to go into like downtown areas without me, they were going to with friends. It was also the same time where these apps started to come up that would show you like where there were sexual predators in the community and all of the dots that were everywhere of things that could go on. And as a parent, if you're looking at a downtown and you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to send my kid into this area, this looks. But then I started doing some research and I started to like look at, what was the actual rate of abductions and those kinds of things from the 1970s until what they are today. And the truth is that they had gone down significantly, like a lot. But what had changed was how often it was being reported and how often it was seen on the news was going up a lot. So it was like these two things were happening simultaneously. Now, there's obviously a ton of stuff that's happening in the world right now that we all need to be very concerned about and we need to react to immediately. But I would also just say optimistically, we've never lived in a time where we had more technology to help us be awesome than right now. There has never been a time in human history where we've had more opportunity to find that breakthrough technology that allows us to no longer need to dig up dead dinosaurs as the way that we, put ourselves from one place to another. We could be right on the edge of changing the world dramatically forever, and we just all have to be committed to what an awesome future looks like rather than building more bombs. Right? Like as a baseline, my baseline for the rest of my life is going to be, I want to know anything. If you're I want less bombs, more schools. If you like that idea, then we can
Amen.
keep talking,
Yeah.
right? Like, in fact, I would like no bombs and the best schools for everybody that we can possibly build around the world. But I'll take less bombs, more schools in the short term so that we can start getting our way closer to that. And I think that basic concept kind of also works in nature is like, hey, we've got a problem here. We got to figure out how we all align on, but we all agree that nature is beautiful. We all agree that it brings something so important into our lives. Let's just have fun trying to figure out how we become a part of it, get in balance with it. We're always going to cost nature something. There is no way to be human without being a consumer. But, bears eat a lot of shit too, you know what I mean? They're brutal. They change their environment. Like all predatory animals have things that they do that mark the territory that they're in. We just have the ability to have the free will to make sure that we are concentrating on finding balance. And we're clearly out of balance right now. The question is, what could we do to be more in balance? Like, what would that look like?
That's a tough one because we have so many opinions. We're polarized by a lot of things that we shouldn't be polarized on, right? The media has an effect on that, but I think coming to agreement on what are the important aspects of nature, what are the most important things, I think it's very, very difficult. Like when I look at what you guys did with the 9 values, you got it to 9 and they're almost indisputable. But, how do we do that for the country? How do we do that even for the state of Massachusetts or for Newburyport? How do you come together and get all of these different interests and opinions and figure out, well, it's like, forget about like getting it in balance. You have to figure out like, what are all the moving levers. It's just so hard. I don't have an answer for that.
Well, what if we removed ourselves from thinking about that we're going to come up with a solution and we just said, what do we think are the value? What's the value of nature? For the 4 of us, like what do we think is the value that nature offers all of humanity? And could we just even try to figure out, how we start to align ourselves off of, wow, it's it's an incredible equality of opportunity that everybody can walk out the door and breathe fresh air, and that fresh air does so many good things for your immune system and improving the quality of your individual life.
Yeah.
How many more of those things are there that we can all rally around and be like, wait a second, my choices are between very small group of people making a lot more money, or me being able to go outside and taking a deep breath of fresh air and the way that feels, or making sure that everybody does. Like, that's not a choice. That's an easy one, right? Like, everybody would choose to go towards that side. How do
Yeah.
we define what those are?
I know it's a really good one. I guess if I think about what nature offers me on just my, individual basis, like taking the dog out for a walk, there's a level of entertainment that nature provides. So we walk Stella and we go down to the riverbed, there's this blue heron that hangs around down
They're
there.
cool.
And occasionally, if we're in the riverbed, come around the corner and like spook this blue heron. It's spectacular. It's entertainment. It's like I got my phone ready, it's on video and I'm ready. And I mean, just the beauty that we see. It could be a sunset. It could be even just the sun during all the smoke that we had. I don't know if you guys have seen
Yeah.
the sun
Yeah.
late in the day. It was like
Yeah.
spectacular. So call that entertainment just on a human level. It's like you're seeing beauty, even if it's a rainstorm, like, the way the rain makes a sound on all of the trees that are like outside in this park where we live. All the rain hitting those leaves is like, it's like a little concert, it's very soothing.
And you're describing like a focus on that, right? And whatever it is, whether
Yeah.
it's the rain or whatever,
It's sensory.
but gives you an opportunity to take a breath, to
Yeah.
exhale, to
Recharge.
like it can take you somewhere, just
Yes.
even for a minute. It can take you somewhere that gives you a moment to just breathe, away from anything else. Where you're focusing on that bird, or you're focusing on the way the rain's hitting the
Yeah.
leaves. It's like, okay, it's a pathway, I guess, for me anyway, to like a self-awareness,
Yeah.
or it can get you there.
I agree. And I think, and I'm trying to work this back to the question you asked, which is a really important one. It's like, how do we come into balance? I think, like, first people have to recognize that nature offers us these things. Like, yes, there's medical, we get vitamin D from the sun. It's tremendous. But most people aren't waking up going, I really want to get outside to get vitamin D. There's a lot of great therapeutic benefits from being outside, but like, we're an entertainment society. We want to be entertained. We want to see spectacular things. We want to see, a snapping turtle wrestling with a water snake, which we actually saw on the falls in Ipswich one morning. Like, we love the drama. We love to, go see the wolves and listen to them howl. And so I don't know what the answer is, but I think getting people outside, it's cheap, right? It's an inexpensive form of entertainment and exercise. It's pretty universally available.
Exactly. Which
And I don't know, I guess the question I would throw back to the group is, how do you activate people to care about that or participate in it? Like, when I walk through like the neighborhood where I grew up, or virtually any suburban neighborhood now, no one's outside. I'm like, I don't even see people cutting their lawn. And if they do, like, somebody else is cutting their lawn, and nobody's garage door is open, and there's nobody revving a dirt bike in the driveway anymore. I'm like, nobody's outside. So, and this is something like I'm really in tune with, because, we're all like you said, out at the table. It's like everyone's looking here. Everyone's looking at their phone, and you don't need to go outside to do that. So how do you wake people up to this? Right?
Well, there's one thing that seems to be a common thread between what both of you are saying that I
just
think
putting this on
is
the
maybe a place for us to pause and go a little bit deeper on, which is that you're describing going out into nature to be able to look at something that is undeniably real as a pause from something that is questionably hardly real.
Mhm.
Right? So all of these social structures that we build, we think of them as institutions that have been around forever, but they never are. All social structures were formed within hundreds, maybe thousands of years in depending on where you live in the world. But even the United States is 250 years old, right? We just had that birthday. It's a very short amount of time in the larger history of how things work and what we see. So all of the structures that we're creating have 250 years worth of history to them. But the second that you go out and you watch a snapping turtle fight with a snake, you're literally looking at millions of years of evolution that happened to allow those two things to be in that place. And it is the realest fucking thing you could watch on the planet at that moment.
Agree.
And one of the issues that we've got to address is like, I feel like I'm at a very interesting age right now because I'm 44 years old. I grew up in a analog childhood, so I played in the woods. And yet I'm exactly the age where I raised my kids who grew up in primarily a digital experience, and I couldn't get them to play in the woods. I couldn't. They were sometimes open to it, but I couldn't find them friends who wanted to go play in the woods because they had all gone to consoles. They had all gone to something where they were creating social bonding around something that had absolutely nothing to do with anything real.
So true.
And then we gave them social tools to communicate with each other on something that is the most unreal thing that has ever been created on the face of the earth.
Yeah.
And then we gave it to them in something that's in their pocket 24 hours a
7,
day,
yeah.
which means that we have erased the ability to be bored.
Yeah.
And nature requires boredom to be able to find the magic in it. You
Innovate.
can't go out into nature. Like if you're running through the woods, what you see is dramatically different than if you sit down on a bench and you let nature just sort of emerge from the stillness that you bring to that situation. I think we have to address all of that in this conversation, right? To try to get to the bottom of something is that we have, if we want to get to how we start to solve problems, it might be just an individual thing where we just start to kind of, we've got to decide for each of the four of us, how much more of this unreal stuff do we want? And how much more do we want to tap into something that makes us feel like we are present and real in a moment? Because I think that that's kind of what life is all about. It's about being real with one another and feeling each other and feeling the environments that we're in and feeling connected to something. And how much more of our lives are we going to give to something that continues to make us feel disconnected?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have an interesting group here, right? Because we've got a really interesting span of age, experience. Like, what do we think? Like, we've all experienced this, the highs and lows of what this is. Like,
Yeah. Well, when you talk about, the kids not going out, I know a little bit different than your experience. When I, leaned on, if you will, nature by getting up and getting out and getting my run in before work. So I'd have something to give at work.
yes,
And to a team of people and things like that. It was necessary to fill myself up. I wasn't out for the entertainment of it, the way I see it, as much as it was a reflective time. So I could fill my coffers, if you will, with the energy that I needed
survival.
to then go out. Yes, to then get out into the world. So it was a reflective time and a time for me to and self-reflect, which I think helped, at least for me, tolerate myself and others much better as I looked at the day and went through the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And just breathing the air and running along the river or the ocean, or even just taking a hike in the mountains. But it doesn't even have to be that big. Like, you don't have to go far to get out and take a walk and take a breath and feel better and maybe have a few thoughts that are a little bit innovative because you're not looking at your phone
Yeah.
and you have a chance to just breathe. And it fills you up a little bit.
Well, the thing about real
does.
too is that you can feel it. Like even in a conversation with another human being, you know in your nervous system whether that person is being real with you or not.
Mhm.
And I think nature has that same effect. Like when you're out in nature, you don't even need to be thinking about the beauty of nature necessarily. It's just you're just subconsciously understanding that you're in something that is real and that is filling you up in some way that allows you to be able to recharge the batteries to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I think
Well, I recently watched the Toy Story 5 movie, which was quite good. I was like, I shed a few tears there, but it's
wow,
about
they got a tear out of you
Oh,
for number
yes,
5. Usually
yes.
3 or 4 starts to fall off, but if they're still
No,
getting
I
it
was
at
like,
5, that's
wow,
pretty
it's
good.
number 5 and it's still actually good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Toy Story franchise is huge and they've done well, but the main bad guy is an iPad. So so the kid has like her regular toys, right? Like Andy and like all of the old toys. And then she like moves into a new neighborhood and everybody has this iPad toy. Like it's like a baby iPad, right? And everybody has that. So she wants one, right? So the parents get this iPad, but the iPad is like it's kind of evil and is like, yeah, like I'm better than the old toys. I mean, it kind of comes back to this story or to the conversation about like kids getting sucked into the technology that parents give them, partially because like parents maybe don't have time to engage or like there's so much social pressure to be online that it becomes this way for like children to find socializing time, which is not really socializing because like texting it just isn't socializing. It isn't. Like I don't know how that like transferred over, but like that's not socializing. And I'm like to those people who like spend all of their time inside and like only text people and they say like they are socializing, I'm like you're not. You're not socializing. I don't know what you're doing, but you're not socializing right now.
Yeah.
That's not
It's an oxymoron.
yeah.
Social media is not social.
It's not social. It's not social at all.
Right.
It makes you unsocial.
It totally does.
Because when you're like in a room with people, like not even just young people, everybody, it's like everybody's on their phone. And like in a bigger situation, like a bigger group situation, like there's sometimes multiple people on their phones. So it's just like we're all together, but there's like more interesting stuff going on the internet. So it's, you know, I know people use it as like when they're feeling awkward and things, but
Well, I'm old, and it's not just the young people.
it's
I
everybody.
thank you for
I'm a
saying
senior
that.
Everybody.
senior citizen, and a lot of our circles, they're all in just riveted to
Thank-
their
Thank you.
electronic.
That's a very generous thing for you to say because I think that there's a
Oh.
tendency to think that it's, you know, that it's the generations beneath us that are the
No.
ones who are. But the truth is that the whole world is addicted.
The whole world is addicted,
Mhm.
and a lot of the problems that the world's facing right now is, you know, because of a lot of older people, older population, and the decisions and choices that they made, and a lot of these octogenarians won't get out of the way and make room for some of the younger people to step up and lead. Just get out of the way.
Yeah.
You know, it's one really interesting thing that's come out of this podcast. Every single episode has been a reflection of this, which is that one of the things that's the most amazing about humans is that we get good at whatever we practice,
It's so true.
right? If you practice anything, if you wake up every day and you intentionally practice that thing over and over and over and over again, you'll get really good at it.
Yep.
But what nobody is paying attention to is that if you practice looking at your phone all the time, you'll be like a fucking lockdown master at looking at your phone all the time. And instead of learning how to be socially adept when you walk into a room and learn how to carry a conversation, not only carry a conversation, learn how to love having a conversation, love how to learn the richness of the idea that everything that you are not is the opportunity of learning that you get from somebody who is. right? But if you're constantly here, you're going to miss all of the richness of what actually exists in the differentiation between all of us as we sit around a table or we go to a party or you have a dinner together. But the phone doesn't care about that.
Right.
All the phone cares about is chemical release, chemical release, chemical release. And what it seems to have figured out is that fear is the ultimate way to be able to keep anybody focused for short term, captive. And so they have started to use fear mechanisms to make sure that they keep everybody even more captivated. Nature is literally the antithesis to this, right? It's like you go out into nature and it forces you to need to slow down a little bit, to need to be able to like bring the skills of presence back into the environment that you're in. And I think it, like, I don't know that we need to force anybody to do anything. I think that's actually probably like if we just took people's phones away, I think that there would be a revolt. Like it would be. But I do think that we could probably slowly make a case, conversation by conversation, that like, are we sure that this is what we want? Or should we start practicing being what we want to become? Because that is the only way to become anything, is that you practice it today so that you become it tomorrow. But whatever you're practicing today is sure as shit what you're going to be tomorrow. Like it does not seem like that is debatable at this point based on looking at the way that human nature works. So we got to make a decision. Like, are we going to make the decision to go for a walk today, or are we going to make the decision to doom scroll? Like, these are decisions people can make. Yeah.
Absolutely. You use the word presence, and that to me is one of the things that I feel is missing in relationships. It could be just the most casual relationships, or it could be with the closest,
100%.
our partners, is presence. Like we have all become so acclimated to the phone, and the phone is like inviting like these other friends, you know, who the other partner doesn't know and doesn't like. And it's like, so we have all of these extra kind of, you know, we have these screens that are part of our conversations that just literally prevent us from being fully present.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care who you are, how intelligent, how how many different things you can juggle intellectually at the same time. There's, issues of just consideration, respect for each other. Because if Maya's trying to tell me something that happened today that upset her, and I'm listening and I'm nodding and making noises, but I've got my phone down here on my knee and I'm kind of looking at this other thing. I'm trying to type. That's just like the most disrespectful, inconsiderate thing you can do. But yet, like, I do it. I'm guilty of it. And everyone I know, I'm watching everyone do it.
Yeah.
And so being present, do we even know? Does anyone care what being present means or contributes?
Well,
Do you know what I mean? I mean, I think this is a really important question for the table. Like, do you guys think that being present is that important, or is it just me being sensitive? Because
No, you're
no.
not being overly sensitive.
No, yeah, being present is important because it keeps you tethered to reality. Like, I sometimes wonder, I'm like, maybe I should talk to a real person. Like, I need to, like, actually talk to somebody in order not to kind of float off into space, because I think what phones are really good at doing is like disconnecting you from where you are. And you can start to sort of live in a very like peripheral space where you're not exactly here, but somewhere else. And I had something else I was gonna say, but it'll come back to
when
me.
you feel present, can you describe what that feeling is for you?
When I'm present, I'm grounded. My head doesn't feel like it's somewhere else. I'm engaged, I'm listening, I'm responding. And when I'm not present, I'm like half ignoring whatever has happened. Like I'm just not, I'm checked out, right? I'm just not paying attention.
When you're feeling present, can you describe, are they positive feelings that you have? And can you describe where those feelings are hitting you and what those feelings might be?
I have a meditation practice, and when I am like really in the zone, like because I can tell when I'm not actually getting there with the meditation, when I'm just sitting there and like trying to get there, but not, it doesn't always work. But when I really do get there, I feel like kind of in the center of me, sort of solar plexus area, like around the stomach, kind of around this like third eye area. There's a lot of movement and motion, I think, of energy going up and down your spine and your core. So I feel like I feel a lot of that there. Yeah.
Okay, so now I want you to imagine that you're looking at your phone. What are the feelings that come up for you as soon as you pick up a phone and transition to that?
I like don't have any like recollection of my body anymore. Like I'm just not in my body. I'm totally in space. Like there's no connection to my energy field. Like my brain is like off doing its own thing, and the rest of me is like sleep mode. I don't even know. Like I'm a zombie. People become zombies looking at their phones, and I do that too. It's
That's a beautiful.
that
I mean,
is-
it's
a-
that it's a
so
scary
accurate.
illustration that you just gave, but I thought that you gave it beautifully
Oh,
because I
thank
think
you.
that is a feeling that a lot of people, all 11 people who watch this podcast, are going to relate to exactly what you just said. Yeah, that was powerful.
That's
I have a question.
coming to mind. Or here, sorry, it's so funny trying to figure out where to talk
Wizard of Oz.
without interrupting people. But just something that was coming to mind for me is that the idea of having these little pocket forms of entertainment isn't something that's new with a phone, right? But that there's something like if you have a book, that when you're engaging in a book, your mind is somewhere else, but you're not just disappearing into a screen, you're disappearing into your own mind. And I find that like when you put that down, that like when you're using a phone, I think that even when you're not using it, that it kind of modulates, negatively affects your presence as you go out into the world, into the rest of the day. Whereas when you have something that's from an external point of view, right, almost looks a lot like a phone. If you have a book, you go throughout the rest of the day, and I find that it's like the world has become a much bigger place, full of all of these stories that might have been possible. Whereas a phone, it's like it just makes you feel. It makes me feel like everything's smaller, which isn't crazy because it should be connecting you to everything.
So you asked a question earlier that I think we should go back to, which is you kind of said, what is presence? And you did a beautiful job of explaining that on one level, but maybe we can get kind of technical about it, right? Because presence is something that we can technically explain. Because I think what we're saying is presence is us being in this moment together right now. So
Yes.
on one side of that definition, it's kind of like what we talked about before we came on to the podcast, which is that I hope that you're all experiencing this right now, how invigorating it is to have everyone's full attention at the exact same time, and how rare that is in the world right now to sit around a table and know that absolutely no one is trying to be anywhere else other than right here at this table having this conversation right now. That's presence. But then if you're looking at what's not present, the things that would pull us into that are any time that we're thinking about our future, which tends to cause us anxiety because you're going into an unknown that you can't control,
Totally.
right? And then any time that you are thinking about your past, which is usually where we get into looping thoughts and we get into it usually pulls us into some degree of feeling like we're the victim of something that we can't control. So if you think about those two sides, right? Like to be able to be present, you have to not over predict your future and become anxious about what you can't control. And you have to let go of the past and realize that you are in control of this moment, and this moment is the only thing that's real. Right? Like it's definable. It's
Yeah.
just the technical work that you have to go through to allow your brain to be able to fully understand that. It takes time. It takes focus. It takes a lot of practice to allow you to go from intellectual understanding to emotional execution.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like Mary, I'm sure you know, and from the work you've done in training, corporate training, and I'm sure Maya knows this as well. It's just, it takes, when you have to go to a conference, right? Like for me, it used to be the sales kickoffs for, I sold in tech. And so you go away and you're on this sales kickoff for 3 days. And, marketing, it usually played a big role in that, and product. And to be present, it took a lot of energy. It was tremendous energy. Like I always think, like even while we're sitting here, it does feel really good because we're aware, like we're listening, and we're exchanging, we're sharing. But it's very hard. Like when you have to attend to something like at a sales conference and be present and attentive and taking notes, and then doing your day, doing your regular job while you're on break for 10 minutes and eating a handful of nuts. Like you have to do that 3-4 days in a row. Like I just remember being exhausted.
Yeah. Well, from a training perspective, it's incredibly inefficient to have people feel the way that you just described. And most of the time, the reason why people feel that way is because they've chosen to build their business or their organization or their social structures around authority. And authority always makes you feel that level of anxiety about the future, because what you are tending to worry about in those moments is, am I going to get approval from the people who are watching me give this sales presentation or this marketing presentation, or are my teachers in school going to give me the approval that I need to be able to go to the next level?
You're in the future.
Now, the thing about, so obviously this podcast is about making a case for curiosity. And the thing about curiosity that's really interesting is that it does not deny us the ability to understand that a hierarchy of decision-making is important. But what it does prove is that in a social structure, the best way to be able to get to the right decision is to fully understand the perspective of all people who are engaging in that decision happening. So if you went to a sales conference, rather than being like, give me your best pitch, it would make a lot more sense to be like, tell me the best thoughts that you have right now for us to be able to reach this outcome. And then let's turn it over to the group and see if anybody else has anything that we can do. And then let's start to formulate our plan to execute once we've heard input from everybody that is, in this environment. But tell me if the two of you have ever seen that happen in any corporate setting that you go into, right?
No.
It's fear. They use fear because fear is an extremely valuable short-term tool. Fear will get you short-term results. But the problem is that it's not sustainable over a long period of time without reinforcing fear over and over and over and over again, which burns everyone out.
Yeah.
And the alternative to that is to come up with a methodology that focuses on respect. But respect is much more difficult because it means that you have to be collaborative from the jump, and you have to stay collaborative the entire time, because if you enforce fear at any point in collaboration, then all of a sudden that collaboration falls apart and you lose all of the momentum of what you're trying to build with respect. It's an it's an all in or all out methodology that we're talking about here, right? Because most of the world has chosen to be all in on fear. You can see it in every aspect. It's not only corporate world, it's every part of what we have built as social structures is built off of this idea that you are seeking approval from someone else. Who? Are you sure they know better than you?
And the interesting thing is when one is present, you usually have an absence of fear, because in that moment, if you are truly in a moment and present in that moment, you feel fine. You're not in a fear-based. If you're truly present, you're not worrying about something happening or worrying about something that did happen. You are present, and you're okay, and you can be an inspiration, and your seventh chakra can be open and you can be plugged in.
Well, the thing
That's
about
awesome.
the thing about presence too, and this is something that we should examine because I don't want to say it like it's the truth. We should examine whether it is the truth. But I think you could make the argument that there is no more effective approach than presence because you can only do your best. There isn't better than that. You know what I mean? You can only do your best. So in any moment, if you're present enough to be able to share your best self with everybody in the room, which requires tremendous vulnerability because it means that you have to admit that you don't know everything, but you are bringing to the table what you do know with humility so that you can allow yourself to be humbled by the idea that maybe somebody else can bring something to it to make it even better. But that level of presence and openness is what allows you to be able to execute at your best. But if you are perverting yourself in some way to try to meet, somebody else's expectations of you, then you have to be diminishing what your capabilities are to be able to do that because you are constantly now trying to, you're using your read of the room to be able to manipulate yourself, rather than getting a read of the room to understand the temperature so that you can be your full self. Two very, very different things, and understanding the difference between those is essential.
Very different things.
Very
Totally
different
different worlds.
Yes. But it's a wild concept. I mean, I think about this with my kids all the time. It's a wild concept as you parent or you go through or you watch somebody from being born to becoming full-fledged adults. And you look at how many times it's a struggle for any of us to be ourselves, as if that's hard. Right? Like
It shouldn't be.
that's crazy that to be yourself is the harder thing to do. When we have to admit that the very nature of being yourself should be the easiest thing that you should be able to do. So something outside of us has to be forcing that feeling of not knowing how to tap into being yourself, because being yourself has to be the most natural state of being for every single person.
But you need to know yourself in order to do that, right? I mean, don't you? And to your point, you said when you're online, you're disembodied. So how can you know yourself when you're half the time you're disembodied because you're on your cell phone or something?
So it's good. I wanted to, and while you were talking about that, that was such a great description of, because I could really relate to that. When you're saying, you're like, I don't even feel like I'm in my body. Like, I totally get it.
Yeah.
But you said you're a painter. Do you feel, are there moments where you feel so really totally present as a painter? Like, not saying that every time you pick up the brushes, but like, does that provide a really strong sense of presence for you where you're just like everything? It's like the opposite of what you're describing with the phone, where you're like, your senses are.
Great question.
Honestly, yes. That thank you for asking that. That is a great question. I feel like a lot of like physical making, whether it's paintings or cooking or building tools, like doing stuff with your hands and seeing it get made, is that is presence as well. Like that is also presence, because like at the end of the day, like painting a painting can be grueling work. You have to get from A to Z, like in a certain way. It's like you have to finish the painting. It has to look somewhat good. It has to look decent enough to show people. All right. So like sometimes it's not fun, right? Sometimes it sucks. Sometimes I sit down, I'm like, I don't want to paint, But at the end of the day, when I get into it, it is a rhythm. It's like kind of I know you're going to talk about flow state in a different episode, but like I can, not every time, but I can get into a flow state where hours pass and I'm literally there. Like I'm on the canvas for hours, but I'm just there and it doesn't feel like hours. That's the interesting thing too, because presence, time passing, right? When you're present doesn't always feel like a long time.
Do you guys hear that sound? That weird sound that just came over?
No.
The microphone. We hit an hour about 5 or 10 minutes ago
Oh, okay.
in this conversation. But to your point, an hour doing almost anything else feels like a big chunk of
lately.
time.
Right.
And
Yeah.
yet, like, you know, I was disappointed to hear it come because I was like, oh, an hour already? Like, it feels different when you're focused.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The flow state that you're talking about is so fascinating. And if there is one thing that I hope that we can bring to children's life and experience, and we've got to figure out a way to integrate this into a broader sense of what it is that we're trying to build in one another and what it is that we're trying to build in younger generations, which is understanding that that flow state is maybe the greatest presence all of us have the privilege of being able to feel throughout our lives. You know, I don't know a single person at any age that wouldn't say that their goal when they do anything is to lock into that flow state where they just disappear. And then they just are so immersed in whatever it is that they're doing that they reappear. And it's like, you know, 2 hours later and but that is such a beautiful way to describe what absolute presence is, right? Where you've given something your absolute 100% focus, and then all of a sudden time means something else. It's a different commodity. It feels different, lasts differently. It's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I asked the question because in college, I got into sculpture and working clay. Like I've always loved photography, but to your point, like when you're working with something that's tactile, working with my hands suddenly, like with clay and doing sculpture, I experienced that. I experienced that in such a profound way where, you know, and I would set up my classes so that by the time I hit the art studio, like I wouldn't have classes. Like I'd have a big buffer of time. And there were days where I would go there, I wouldn't eat, I wouldn't look out a window. I didn't have a phone, thank God, to distract me 50 times every hour. But I experienced that incredible flow state, and it was the most intoxicating thing in my life. And the only other place that I've experienced it is in nature, and that's one of the things that really, you know, which kind of charged me up about this podcast is like, it's a part of my life. It's not all entertainment, right? It's not all beauty. Like I've gone to nature to get healed. I've gone to nature when my life was in total shambles and despair. And I'd go on a walk and like you talk about being present, it was a very different type of presence, not a invigorating, warm presence, but it was like you mentioned earlier, like you'd go on your run and it's like an inner dialogue. You might be working through things, emotions, and it's almost like you're hearing this dialogue and it's not even words. So I just think it is one of the greatest things anyone could experience. And if there was a way to help young people identify what they should do with their lives, like it would be great if you could help people identify what that moment feels like and then zoom in on that. When did you do that? And how often do you experience that?
Yeah.
Like I never got that in my education. Like I only learned that in college and I was like, wow, it felt so good to create these things. And I felt fearless creating. Not that I was a great sculptor or artist, but I felt like if this thing fell apart, the idea is right here. Like the inspiration, my vision is totally intact. I'll just build it again. I'll create it again. And the same thing happens to me outside. I could be suffering through the worst hike. You know, it's humid. It's like I'm totally blown out. I'm shaky. I'm like, I need protein. My body's just killing me. And, but I will still be in that zone of just fully present. Every step, this rock, that rock, it just is like a language to me that feels totally right.
Yeah.
It's like the antithesis of the bullshit of like, you know, sometimes faking it in corporate America with all these buzzwords and acronym bullshit. It's like,
You mentioned earlier that you have a dog.
yeah, it's Lisa's dog, Stella, but I'm very fortunate that I get to care for Stella too, and that Stella likes me.
So I don't know if everybody else has had the privilege of having a dog at some point or been around dogs, but I would say that one of the things that is interesting to examine about dogs in particular is that it's arguable that maybe they've become our best friends because they teach us presence.
Mm.
The thing about a dog that is so interesting is that dogs are exactly what they need to be in that moment, right? So if they sense that someone is dangerous, they are brutal. They are dangerous, they are brutal, and they are violent. As violent as they need to be in that moment to make sure that their intuition is acted upon, especially if it's on behalf of someone or something that they love.
Yeah.
But if they don't have that feeling or intuition, they are 100% joy. Obviously, the nurture that you give a dog compels that animal to also change its behaviors. But left alone, dogs seem to be an amazing example of how we can learn presence from an animal who is, living it all the time. I've had a couple instances where when I've had dogs throughout my life that I've brought them out into the woods and had the privilege of being able to let them off leash
Yeah.
and just watch them run. I had a golden doodle, and when I would watch her run, there was like not a misstep. Full speed in whatever she was doing, and not over branches, around stumps, chasing things. Not a missed step
Yeah.
at full speed. That is incredible. That is what our instincts are capable of, right? I'm not saying that we can do exactly what every animal can do within their sphere, but we are capable of so much more than we give ourselves credit for in our instincts. And nature is just telling us that story all the time. Like, if you're present, look what you can do. You can just trust that your body is going to know exactly what it needs to do at the right time. You can trust that you can climb a mountain, and that every step you'll be thoughtful about where you're putting your foot, because it matters. If you don't do it that way, there's real consequences that you have to face, where if you're walking down the hallway of a hotel on your way to go to go into a meeting, you can look at your phone while you're doing that, because it's like half-assed walking down a hallway. You're not in any danger, you're not at any risk. You can give up half of your consciousness to whatever else that you want to, because it doesn't really matter that much. But one of the things that we have discussed quite a bit lately is discomfort necessary for growth? Or a better way of asking that maybe is, can you grow without discomfort?
Personally speaking, I don't, for myself,
Yeah.
That doesn't ring true. It feels like I had to be in discomfort to grow, because maybe I wouldn't have grown or learned whatever I had to learn if I was comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the discomfort, and sometimes I've hit depths. So you talk about the depth of feelings and things like that. And I mean, those did become opportunities for growth, I will say, most definitely.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. How about for everybody else?
I definitely think you cannot have growth without discomfort. But I will say that I often find myself running away from the discomfort, and I'm like, I want to be comfortable. I would just want to be comfortable. And sometimes you just have to tell your brain to do it.
Yeah.
And it's just figuring out the way to most effectively tell that to yourself.
Well, I super appreciate the vulnerability of what you just said and the honesty, because the truth is that everybody feels exactly the same way that you just said, and we all run away from discomfort. That's
Totally.
that is the fight or flight, right? But the question is, if we all agreed, and you haven't got a chance, do you agree that?
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
I really think, and I agree with Maya too. Like, it's, I grew up, kind of feeling like avoiding problems and avoiding conflict is a worthwhile use of my energy and my attention. And it's like, I learned as a man on my own that that's impossible. Like you don't have enough energy to try to hide from conflict and problems. It's inevitable. Maybe some people are luckier. Maybe some people don't go through the same. I don't know. I stopped worrying about it, but I think that conflict it's out there. We're going to have it. It's how we approach it. So I don't believe that you can just be on cruise control with things feeling good and really grow.
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, just it reframes discomfort, right? It frames it as something that we have to run towards. And we have to figure out how do we define, emotional discomfort from physical discomfort. And sometimes, you can get imbalanced in, getting used to figuring out how to have hard conversations with people so that you're starting to become emotionally balanced, but you're allowing your body to, to not get what it needs as far as becoming uncomfortable to kind of like grow and figure out how to make you feel better in your body. And it almost seems like we've got to figure out how to find the balance between running towards discomfort with both sides so that we get comfortable. You described it perfectly, comfortable right here. You know what I mean? But it might require us to be, to seek discomfort at reasonable levels. Now, I think we all agree, right? Like there's a difference between discomfort and trauma. And I would really prefer no one need to learn lessons through trauma, because in my experience, because I do believe that I have experienced trauma, trauma is different because it's not something that you get over.
Right.
It's something that gets stuck. And then for the rest of your life, you have to figure out how to reabsorb that discomfort all the time, never ending. And you have to figure out how to reshape your body around your mind, around everything around this never-ending discomfort that you have to live with for the rest of your life. Now, hopefully, we're able to find some relief from that through, who knows where that will come from. But discomfort might be the way to be able to learn some of these critical lessons without having to get ourselves all the way to trauma, where trauma tends to be the thing that you either have to be all the way in on solving, or it's going to be all the way in on taking over your life, and you're going to have a really hard time getting back from that,
Totally.
I think this might be a good time for question 2. I don't know how everybody's feeling about it, but I'm going to slide this over to you. Oh, sorry, that wasn't a great slide.
No, it was good. Okay. It is a sticker.
Yeah.
See, I see that.
It's a fancy one, though.
It
It's
is
at least a fancy
It is
one.
a fancy sticker,
Yeah.
though. It's like Taskmaster. How has what you've learned from nature influenced the way you live today?
So when you went for those runs every morning, it sounds like from what you've said so far that those runs weren't necessarily about a connection with nature. It was more like you were using nature as a mechanism to connect with yourself.
Yes.
So how has that played out in your life? Like, how does that play out today in ways that you've learned to use that mechanism to your advantage?
Well, and it wasn't just in runs. Like it might be, I get in a flow state, like skiing or something like that. I mean, so I think I've used I might use nature when I was out on my runs to clear my head and get feel more balanced so I could get into my day. But then I've also gotten out into nature just to feel myself again. And I mean, how does that affect my life? I think that I bring more patience to the day, and an acceptance maybe of what is, more than I think I would fight things more, versus when I've had that time and then get on with my day. It's easier to just allow what comes as opposed to trying to control it so much. I don't know if this makes sense. And then you're choosing. It's also like, everything really is a choice, and I think I make better. You talked about trauma or even being in discomfort, and just to tie it together, I think that when you might be feeling discomfort, having those moments out in nature allowed me to accept that discomfort so that I could work through it. And I don't know why it does that, why being outside. Again, it was just feeling really great after, being out, and, now it's not a run, but it might be a walk, or it might be, whatever it is, a bike ride or whatever. But just being outdoors allows me to bring a little bit more patience to both myself and whatever I'm encountering during the day. But I don't know why it does that.
Yeah.
That's what I feel. There's an allowance.
You've said a couple times that when you're out in nature, that it makes you feel like yourself.
Yeah.
And then you just said something really beautiful, which is when you feel like when you're out in nature and you feel yourself, you feel, my interpretation was that you feel lighter, you feel more happy, like you feel the abundance of what life is and the opportunity that comes along with that. Is that what you think
Totally
that your
does.
natural state of being is when you say you feel like yourself? How would you describe what being you feels like when you hit that level?
I am just in complete gratefulness. I have so much gratitude for my life in those moments. And being out there, when I feel like I'm myself, I'm in this space of being in gratitude and thinking about all the things that are right, that are working. And you can't have a bad day when you think about all the things that are working for you. And for some reason, I don't sort of focus on maybe what might not be working, but I'm focused on what is, or I'm focused on, the people in my life that I love and feel so grateful for that. And whatever it is that's going on in my life, I'm because of the present. You're present, so you can allow yourself to be reflective of all of that abundance. And in that space, you just really can't have a bad day because there's always something you could be grateful for.
It's also interesting that gratitude might be the same thing as, I don't know if it's the same thing as truth, but it's definitely really hard to say that the natural state of being shouldn't be gratitude. Like when you think just about the pure logic of what it is to be alive, the chances of any of us being alive is mathematically like fascinating, right? The number of like the mathematical chances that you are the connection between two human beings that then turns into a maturation of you becoming alive at this table. And not only that, but then you think about the fact that like you probably have brothers or sisters, or at least known people who have brothers and sisters, and you realize that they're like similar, but definitely not the same. So the fact that you're you, exactly you, is like the chances of that mathematically is probably 1 in the trillions. I mean, it's like so unbelievably rare that exactly you could exist. And we even know how rare that is because we've seen many, many studies where you have identical twins who physically look exactly the same, share, outrageous amounts of DNA, and yet because their environment is slightly different, they had slightly different friend groups. One person went to a party one time that the other one didn't go to. Just these like little teeny tiny changes in the way that something operates, and then all of a sudden you've got 2 completely different outcomes, 2 completely different personalities. Everything is different. I think that that's logical evidence that the natural state of being is gratitude for the fact that we're alive. The fact that we're all the lucky ones. We're all the lucky ones who got an opportunity to be able to manage our time and to figure out how we can become the best versions of ourselves with the time that we were given. Like, that seems like the most logical way that you would think about every day and all the time, which maybe is why gratitude and presence are so closely connected, is because when you're present, it just seems obvious that you should be grateful.
It's very interesting. And that's like that's your end value, right? And the gratitude is kind of where you end the daily journey, or that's the objective to kind of reach that state.
That took me a long time to come to that last one in the scale of what we're doing. And just for anybody who's watching the podcast, we're talking about our community values, our 9 values that start at self-awareness and end at gratitude for time. But a lot of that, I lost my mom a year and a half ago. And that experience, I would definitely not call that a trauma, because it was an equally beautiful experience as it was a very difficult experience to go through. But I would say the primary thing that I learned from that was that I had about 30 days with her where I knew that she was going to pass in that amount of time. So I got a lot of time with her. We had a lot of really deep conversations over that amount of time.
That's a blessing.
It was a blessing. It was an absolute blessing, and it's something that I'll cherish for the rest of my life. But it was very clear in those conversations, and when you watch somebody pass who you deeply love, that the first thing that was very obvious was that cause and effect is the most real thing that exists on earth, and the the cost of loving somebody completely is loss and grief. That you don't get one without the other, that if you want to accept all of the abundance of what comes with being loved and loving somebody else, you are naive and childish if you think that that's not going to come with the consequence of loss and grief. That's just the way it is. And when you accept that, it makes it a lot easier to be able to be grateful for. But the other thing that became more obvious to me was that time became much more precious.
Yeah.
I had already gotten over 40, and I think when you get over 40, you kind of naturally realize that you've flipped your sand timer and the sand's going in the wrong direction to some degree, or at least it feels there's some degree of that feeling. But then losing her made time feel so much more relevant to me. All of the things that I had been waiting to be honest with myself about, all the things that I had been kind of holding back on were like, no, you got no more time. Everything has to happen immediately. You've got to make sure that you are focused on making your time count. And the best way to do that is gratitude. Gratitude is the most amazing tool that we have. And so sometimes, I think Oliver brought it up earlier. It's like nature has this way of making us go through these catastrophic downs so that we can understand how to appreciate the up. And the way that we've described it many times on this podcast is maybe the easiest analogy for this is that I don't know a single person who has had the flu who didn't feel very present as they were puking in the toilet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you wish you could be anywhere else other than doing that right then, but you are exactly at that toilet puking into it, and nothing is going to take your presence away from it. So unfortunately, presence doesn't only exist in the abundance of wonderful things. It also exists very much in the tragic times that we have to experience. And I just know from my own personal side that the 2 days after the flu has left me is the highest degree of gratitude that I have for my health. Those 2 days, I'm like, this is what I felt like for months and months and months before the flu happened, and I didn't
appreciate
it at all. Like,
I didn't recognize
what a tragedy! What an asshole I am to myself that I just let that happen without anything on the other end.
That's a great example.
And you get more and more appreciative of good health the older you get.
It has to be, right?
Yeah,
it has to be that
totally do.
Yeah, the less of something you have, the more it has greater meaning. And maybe that's also why loss of people that we love brings this like very fine-tuned opportunity for us to be able to learn from that experience rather than only learning as our life starts to change. And yeah,
That's true.
yeah,
Yeah, I lost my mom just a week before I turned 40.
yeah,
And a big takeaway that just kind of revealed itself to me right away was that, like you were saying, like life is so finite. I felt
Yeah.
like, wow, my mom is gone, and she wasn't that old. But I just made this promise to myself that I'm going to communicate to all the people I care about
Mm.
how I feel about them.
Mhm.
And I'm going to do it on a regular basis because you don't know when you won't see them again. It's like you don't know what that last day is going to be. And I didn't get that with my mom. She died suddenly,
Mm.
overnight, but I didn't make it there. And that's been a really good thing, like raising my kids,
Mhm.
telling people that I care about, that I love them, often just hourly, like it feels good because that's gratitude, right? Like it's just a simple way to show gratitude.
And the truth.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, because you can't avoid the inevitable, but if someone leaves knowing how you feel about them, I mean, that's probably the best you can do.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder too, I mean, I don't know if everybody's experienced loss, but I did, sometimes people will talk about the idea that they can feel people that they love that are still present with them. I haven't had that experience yet.
Neither have I.
I'm open to it. I would love for that experience to happen. It just has not happened for me yet. I was in a yoga class one time and I just, in the middle of the yoga class, just broke down crying. No idea why. I'm not really a crier. It's like, it was a weird thing that just happened. And at the end, I had a sense that it was because I was mourning something about my mom, but it wasn't even that I was thinking about her while it was happening. So it was a strange relationship.
Hmm.
But I have built some level of confidence in feeling like it's about making sure that the way that I feel about her, about the people that I care about, that's what I can control. Right. So, it's like first is just feeling it,
Mm-hmm.
making sure that you are feeling it, that you're not letting things distract you from being able to feel how lucky we are to have people in our lives that we love and that can love us, and what a profound gift that is to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then secondly, like, can we figure out how to articulate that in a way that, that makes those other people also be able to tap into the idea that their life can get better because they can feel our love,
Mm-hmm.
But I've never found anything that didn't happen with me first. It's like for so much of my life, I was trying to solve all of my problems by fixing them out. And then I started to figure out like, oh, everything that I'm trying to fix, I got to fix here first. And then once I fix it here, it just makes me so much more available to go figure out how I can also start to align myself with the opportunity to make sure that that is fitting everywhere else. But it was, it's embarrassing how long it took me to, to kind of figure that out. But figuring it out felt like it made a big difference to me.
I think that's what I meant when I said I can tolerate myself better, and then therefore I can tolerate everybody else during the day.
Yeah.
Is a similar way that I
Yeah.
looked at it. Yeah.
But if you had been like allowed in your daily life to be yourself all the time, would you have felt that way? I mean, to be like tolerating oneself.
Probably. And I say probably because I think there's a certain amount for myself, a certain amount of, maybe not being in the moment or being present with myself where I'm beating myself up about something.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I can get sort of past that, I can just have a better day. So I think that, I don't know that it's a good question because I couldn't just be myself in my work environment every day.
Mm-hmm.
but I could have a lot of moments where I could bring my authentic self to the table. It just wasn't sustainable for a full, work day, but there were moments in time through the day and moments maybe in a one-on-one or in a meeting that I could really be authentic and be in a flow state as far as work goes. But I never did it like all day. Like I didn't paint canvases and, was able to get into a flow for, hours on end. But the day could fly,
I would imagine, though, that canvas must feel like an opponent in some ways.
Sometimes, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're fighting with this canvas to see if you can get your vision onto it without it turning into something that you don't want it to be, which in a lot of ways is kind of what it feels like to be in a meeting too, right? Where you're in that battle.
Yeah. I always think like paintings, it's not authoritarian. As a painter, you're not controlling every single thing. You have to listen to the painting. You have to dialogue with the painting. You have to see if this needs more of this. Does it need more of that? It's not like, I have a plan and I'm going to execute the plan and it's going to look like this. Like, it's never like that. It's like, oh, I put something down and then I react to that. And then I put something down and I react to that. But it's this back and forth between me and the canvas. And like, sometimes it is a struggle. It is a battle. Yeah. Because it's going in one direction. I'm like, I really don't like this. And I keep doing it. I really don't like this. And sometimes I just have to like go away and not battle with it. And then once I have space, then I can come back with a fresh, mind and eye and fix what is going wrong.
Well, the world is also really complicated because at some point, if you become a really good artist, which I'm assuming based on how we got to you today and the connection that is you, is that, there's a tendency to want to become a commercial artist. And then once you step into the commercial artist side, then there's like, well, how long do I have to paint this canvas before this canvas turns into my rent? And how long do I have, in all of these things life is complicated is the point, right? Is that it forces us all the time to be making these instantaneous decisions about how it is that we want to bring ourselves to whatever it is that we're doing at any given moment. And the pattern that you described very beautifully and very honestly, and I appreciate everything that you were saying, was that oftentimes in our life, we find that it's like, we dip into feeling like ourselves, and then we dip into something that feels performative, and then we dip into something that feels like us, and then we dip into something that feels performative. But what is so dangerous about that pattern is that we think that we can just turn that off when we go home. You can't. The pattern, we've been teaching ourselves, we get good at whatever we practice. And if you're working 8 hours a day, that is where the majority of your practice is going with your time all the time. So it comes into our relationships where with our loved ones, we're like, sometimes we're performative and sometimes we're ourselves, and sometimes we're performative and sometimes we're ourselves. When really the reality is that no matter where we go, that's where we should be. Right? And we just have to figure out how to make that commercially viable and artistic at all times, because I've never met a human being that wasn't both an artist and a scientist. Never, not a single one. But it's just, where is their science building a foundation that their artistry can turn into something beautiful? That's what we have to figure out. And everybody possesses that. It's just not the same for everyone. Everyone is similar. No one is the same. And so trying to figure out that difference between the science and the art is, I feel like that's what we owe each other. I feel like that's what we owe humanity, is to allow every single person to figure out what what is that mixture that's going to allow them to be a contributor to this larger tapestry of the way that we, come together.
Yeah. Well, AI is presenting some interesting opportunities and challenges when I think about artists. It's like it, just in my lifetime, seeing the digital, the sort of this digital revolution, hatch itself where everybody has a camera, right? Everyone's a photographer. Everyone's a digital creator, when you look at all these accounts.
Mm-hmm.
So there is these incredible tools for people to express themselves, create little documentaries and little things that might never have happened. But like at the same time, there's so much noise. There's just so much there's so much crowding us for our attention. And I would have loved to pursue, I think I would have pursued art seriously, like coming out of college, even though it wasn't my major. I had some people in the faculty talk to me and just say some really great things. I got to have like my own show my senior year. Kind of happened out of the blue. They said, "Hey, we have this 2-week slot, and would you like to do it? Would you like to have your own show?" And I just didn't have the courage to do it. I was worried about my parents. They're like, "When are you going to get a job with?" Like I was teaching tennis. Like I was a tennis pro, and like thinking about going to study pottery in Montana, and my parents were like, "This is really great that you feel this way, but when are you going to get a job with benefits and da 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 da?" And I just didn't have the guts to to keep creating. But I just feel like that creation for me is just so rewarding. It just it fills me up, and I don't, I haven't figured out a way in corporate America to fill that cup. And I know a lot of people say, "Well, that's fine to do it at night or whatever," but it just doesn't work that way for me. It would it's just, I feel like it's kind of all or nothing. But
With reflection, where you are now in your life, because I thought a really wonderful conversation with you where we sat down and we were real with each other for
Totally.
a long time, right?
yeah,
Upon reflection, and you think back to that time where you had to make that critical, do I turn left, do I turn right kind of decision, right? What do you think is the bigger risk now that you've had time to reflect? Is the bigger risk not doing something that you feel like is calling to you? Or do you feel like the bigger risk is doing that thing and potentially failing?
wow. I think the bigger risk is definitely not going and finding that thing. Because I reached a crossroads. I was divorced, and I I had divorce contract like everyone does, and financial obligation. I had 3 kids, and we put them through college, and that was a lot of demand. I didn't have an opportunity to say, "Oh, I want to go be like the assistant editor of this cool skiing magazine, this regional magazine in Plymouth, New Hampshire." There wasn't an opportunity to do that. So I did the thing, but now I don't have any excuses anymore. So I really feel I've lost so much of my self-consciousness that I had when I was in, I've been in corporate America, and I just kind of got out recently. And
Congratulations.
Yeah.
thank you. But yeah,
He escaped.
Yay!
I mean, it just, it's not all that great, but
You guys are survivors. Oh wait, all of you are survivors. Oh my
we all,
gosh. Survivors of corporate America.
yeah. But I feel like, I really want to, there's no excuses now. And that's not the motivator. It's like, I'm very comfortable with who I am. I feel like a lot of the struggles, a lot of the obstacles that I've had in the last 20 years, going through being a divorced parent and coming out with 3 great kids who, we communicate so well. We're all just grateful for each other, in this family. And so I'm surrounded by all these great people in my life. So I feel like there's never a better time to really recognize the enrichment and to be grateful and say, I've got all this support. You know, my girlfriend, tremendously supportive to, go do the thing. And I think for me, the hardest thing is like figuring out what exactly it is.
Yeah.
But I'm not like, even that doesn't cause me stress because I feel like, even just meeting you and, meeting Oliver and Trevor and just, all of these touch points have been so inspiring. Even though I can't point to the path, like
Yeah.
I don't have fear. I'm like, I'm on the right path. I'm talking to the right people. It's coming together.
Yeah.
I'm gonna like kind of come up to the shoulder on the climb and like, I'm gonna see a view and I might not be able to see the summit, probably won't, but
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'm going the right way.
Yeah. Well, pacing matters, right? And it seems like I'll just speak from my own personal side. Like the older I get, the thing that I enjoy about being older is that I understand how to pace myself better.
Yeah.
I understand how to understand that pacing is the primary rhythm that you have to focus on to be able to figure out how to get to what you want. I mean, if I had to describe what the last 3 years has taught me, I definitely can describe it in one word, which is patience.
Yes.
Right? It's every day just getting new lessons on how to become patient, how to, no matter what it is that you want to have happen, to know that, you have to be patient to allow it to happen the right way.
Right.
But I think what you just said, for those people who do listen to this or whoever hears this, I hope that what's inspirational about what you were saying too is that when it comes to risk and reward, we have to be very, very thoughtful about the advice that we give to other people, number one. You know what I mean? Because we can have a massive influence on other people, our own children being probably the most primary one, but then you can certainly extrapolate that out through friendships or through other, relationships. But I very rarely meet somebody who bet on themselves and regretted it. I've met plenty of people who have bet on themselves and failed, because I have been essentially a serial entrepreneur my whole life. And man, do you meet some weirdos out there when you're doing that. And, and there's not a single entrepreneur that's been doing it for a long time that hasn't failed a lot. Like that is what you learn how to do. But I've never met anybody who regretted betting on themselves. So that's got to mean something, right? Like that's got to mean something to all of us, that when we get to these crossroads and you have to decide practicality, betting on yourself, maybe practicality is the bigger risk.
Totally.
Yeah,
For
it's
me,
crawl.
I feel that way. Yeah.
I was going to say it's crawl, walk, run. And sometimes if you're choosing that practicality, maybe you're never really ever running. But you could get there when you're betting on yourself.
Yeah.
I would love to get everybody's thoughts on this. This came up in another conversation that I was having with somebody the other day where we were talking about the idea of the number of times that I've listened to advice from people who do not live a life that I admire is embarrassing. The number of times that I have allowed somebody to infiltrate my thought process and my decision making, and I have not zero, but I don't want my life to turn out the way that their life is currently being lived, is such a lack of logical thinking that it is embarrassing how long it's happened for. But I think it's worth pausing for a second and just saying, when we take advice, which is so valuable in life, to be able to use someone else's life experience to learn a lesson for yourself, to advance your best self. Such a gift. But you have to be so careful because age alone is not the right measurement as to whether that is someone who you should be taking advice from.
Especially the older ones whose brains are only operating at like 80%.
Well,
It could be, yeah.
regardless of the ages in this room, I think the thing that seems at least true to me is that if we go back to that we get good at anything that we practice, and then you apply that to the basic rule of, Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours, that you can reach some level of mastery if you apply 10,000 hours of practice to anything that you want to get good at. Well, I have found that to be true. I don't know whether 10,000 hours is the magical number. To me, it seems like some people are just naturally gifted and they can reach mastery in a short amount of time. Some people are people who can reach mastery, but it takes more reps. But by the time they get those reps and they reach mastery, they are somebody who is extremely dependable at the mastery in which they've got their reps in, right? So I don't know that one is better than the other. But the other side of that is if you practice doing something poorly, you are going to master being poor at that thing. And the more time you have lived doing things poorly, the more likely it is that you could give terrible advice.
Very true.
Or subsequently, the longer that you have lived doing things well, the richness of your advice could be absolutely profound for anybody that you talk to, as long as you have concentrated on being the best version of yourself over as many hours as you could possibly accumulate. And the thought would be the older you are, the more hours you've had to be able to accumulate excellence. But I think we all have to be very cautious about the idea that that the quality of the time that we spend has to be a dictator to the quality of advice we could give to somebody else, and certainly should be a dictator as to the quality of advice that we believe we're getting in return.
Yeah. Discernment's really important.
So how do you do that? How do you discern? Like when somebody is giving you advice, how do you decide what to take and what to leave?
I think that taking what you like and leaving the rest is a really good sort of motto to live by.
Yeah.
And, again, I feel like I'm a broken record a little bit, but I feel like the more I know myself, the easier it is to be discerning for myself.
Yeah. I think that's why we started with self-awareness. Because if you're not aware of yourself, it's very difficult to figure out. You don't know where your blind spots are.
Well, you don't know yourself, and you don't know even what you want or what turns you on or what is going to, make your heart sing. You have to, and going back again, maybe tying it back to discomfort sometimes can the silver lining is that you might uncover something that really turns me on. I like that. I want more of that, but maybe you have to go through something first that's in that discomfort and work through it to get to that place.
Yeah.
And again, it also comes down to just I've always felt like this, and it's a perspective, not a fact, but what I focus on is I'm sort of losing my train of thought. So but what I focus on is really will come to fruition for me. So it's almost like I don't know what the outcome is going to look like, but if there's things I know that I like and things that if I know myself, I know what I don't like, my future I can create a future where I live those things and I have more of what I like and less of what I don't like.
Yes.
And it sounds a little bit rudimentary, but
Nope.
It's not, though. I mean,
So
those
it's hard to do.
Yeah, those simple things are often the hardest things to do. You know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And people can also give advice, bad advice. People can give advice that only has to do with themselves and not to you. Because we all have our mind maps and we're all talking from our own lived experience, and that's kind of the limit of what we can offer. And sometimes people offer what they offer and it doesn't align or it doesn't, work for you. And so, I mean, I've taken bad advice. I've taken plenty of bad advice. I try not to give that much advice because I don't know that person's life or situation, and I feel like coming from a very unusual path, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can really say anything about your life. But yeah, people give bad advice. Wait, what were we talking about?
Well, I was
that-
just
Yeah.
yeah. What I was thinking of when both of you were talking was one thing that becomes really obvious in training when you observe across thousands of people, you can see that there are no bad behaviors that don't come from insecurities. So if you bring me into any corporate environment and you plot me down and you tell me the problem, I can almost within moments start to identify what is the obvious insecurity that's coming from somewhere. Give me the people, give me the problem, and I'll be able to figure out the solution because I'll understand that there's an insecurity that's creating this. I have to identify the insecurity. I have to understand what is the environment that's creating the insecurity to exist. Is that an individual person who has their own individual insecurity, or is this an environmental insecurity that's being created because there's not the correct culture in place to allow security to thrive? But as soon as you understand that, you start to realize that humans are fairly simple in that way, that when we feel insecure, we tend to look for ways to defer that insecurity out. And so that usually turns into gaslighting.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start making everything everybody else's problem or fault. And then we become the victim of the ripple effect that comes back to us as if we had nothing to do with it, even though it was our insecurity that pushed that ripple out so that the ripple could come back to us in the first place. So really, the opportunity that we all have as individuals is to figure out, how do we become secure? How do we start to feel really confident in our own skin? And we talked quite a few times about this idea of gratitude for time. I think you could actually replace gratitude for time with self-love. I think they're exactly the same thing. If you are grateful for your time and to be alive, it also means that you have tapped into being in love with yourself. But being in love with yourself means that you have to also acknowledge that you are both things. You are amazing in some ways, and in all the ways that you are amazing, you also have to admit that that is where your biggest deficit is. Whatever is your greatest strength is also going to give you an equal and opposite deficit. And if your strength is massive, watch the fuck out, because your deficit is also going to be massive.
You're on the science now.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah, no, this is the science part.
But the idea is that this is why self-awareness is so powerful, is because a lot of times people get addicted to the idea of only trying to think about themselves in a positive way and look for all the things that they're doing really well. Well, that's great, because that does build a fake it till you make it kind of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want a real confidence comes from the idea that you understand that you're fallible, like that you fail, that you can fail, and you will fail if you don't do this thing well.
Mm-hmm.
And so it means that you've got to look for your insecurities. You've got to find where you're clearly creating ripple effects that are causing problems that are coming back to you. And you've got to start taking bad behaviors and replacing them with positive behaviors so that the consequence of your positive behavior is positive outcomes, because the obvious cause and effect of having a bad behavior is a bad outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's accountability for yourself.
It's accountability for yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so good. I feel like going through divorce helped me to get on that train.
Yeah, no way to avoid it.
Well, no, to looking at myself through the lens and saying, I'm responsible for at least 50% of where I'm at right now, at least. And then, because that process took a lot longer. It wasn't trauma, but it was very difficult.
It's a loss.
Part of my life.
No, I
Huge loss.
would argue that
It felt traumatic at times.
yes, I would argue that
because there's a loss of identity too.
Yes.
That was
I actually think that that's what trauma is, and that's what we should. I mean, I don't know what trauma is any more than anybody else knows, but from my own experience and from listening to as many people as I possibly can, as generously as I possibly can, what it seems like is the trigger for something to become long-term traumatic is when it causes a death of your identity. When it is something it's such a profound life change for you that whoever you thought you were before it happened no longer can exist in the same way that they did. And now you have to let go, you have to shed the skin of that version of yourself, and you have to allow a rebirth to happen on the other end. That's traumatic. It's a traumatic experience because, it requires a bunch of things. It requires self-reflection, it requires accountability, but it also requires self-forgiveness. And oftentimes it requires you to be able to forgive someone who did do something to you that victimized you, and you have to be able to let go of that. You have to be able to forgive yourself, maybe forgive them for whatever that was, so that you can free yourself from living as a victim. Doesn't look like living as a victim has good results for people, right? So if you want the best results for your life, if you want to live your best life, it does not appear that living your life as a victim is going to help you get there. So it requires a real logical thinking about, exactly what are the outcomes that you want, and then to make choices, immediate choices.
I wanted to just respond to the question that you asked that Mary dove into, and she had some really good points about what you were describing to me was being goal oriented. You were talking about visualizing where you want to be, what you want to get done, and those things will happen. And I think about the best advice, or one person who was a mentor to me, my first boss in sales, this guy Jeffrey Pearl. He's just a phenomenally successful person on the emotional level and intellectual level, but he's a process guy. And I was working for him, and it was the first Christmas, and he gave us all these journals, and I still have it, and it's full of all kinds of stuff that I've written in it. But he said, he just wrote in, the first step to achieving your goals is writing them down. And that's what you were describing, and that's what I was experiencing when you were talking about that, is you journalize, you literally write down the things you want to do, and what do I want to have? What kind of relationship do I want to have? And what does that person look like? And what's the car that I want? And I started doing all that stuff, and it feels like magic, but I was in telemarketing before I worked for Jeffrey, and it was a long distance telephone company, this little regional crappy long distance telephone company that ended up getting acquired by some other companies that were acquired by WorldCom. So it was just this wild cowboy days of selling. But we would put photos of things we wanted, the car we wanted, and my friend Tim had a picture of a helicopter and all these helicopters that he wanted to buy. And
I'm imagining Wolf of Wall Street. I'm imagining you in Wolf of Wall Street.
It was definitely those days of dialing for dollars, hitting the phones. But so I guess what I would say is, to me, if someone's giving me advice, I feel like the best and most valuable types of advice would be things like what Jeffrey gave me: processes, approaches to life, right?
Tools.
That's the best stuff. Tools, toolkit, not, stay out of AI, small cap stocks. You're just, I don't need that. When people give advice, I really think immediately A, does this person know me? Do they understand what I need right now? Do we have a context where they're in a position to give me advice? And if someone's giving me advice, that's phenomenal, thank you. But to take the advice, I'm looking for people who are kind of giving me the tools to go become a successful fisherman, not just, saying, here's a fish, the old expression, whatever, teach a man to, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach him how to fish for life.
You-
So
You just said something really beautiful too that I just want to point out applies to another piece of this. So you're talking about getting advice, but you could also apply what you just said to caring about other people's opinion of you,
it's true.
right? Like if
Yeah.
somebody doesn't love you, does their opinion of you matter?
No.
Think about how much of the world is dictated right now by people who are twisting themselves into a pretzel because they
know.
care about the opinions of people who don't love them.
I don't give a
It's
shit
the
anymore.
biggest-
I don't give
biggest
a
waste.
shit either.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I think that's like I was saying before, how I feel fearless about kind of where I'm at. And I think it's because of realizations like that, like kind of learning those lessons and going, I'm not going to waste energy on that anymore.
No.
You know, it's just, that is one of those things. It's
Yeah.
just not going to do it.
Yeah.
But that's a great observation. Yeah.
It's just, but on the other end, it may also require kind of like what we talked about with equality earlier, where it's like you can't walk into a room and look down on someone, but you also can't walk into a room and look up to somebody. You have to be, you have to be ready to walk into that room and make sure that you are going to share when you have the knowledge that's worth sharing, and you're going to be humble and listen when you know that somebody else has the knowledge that needs to be shared at that moment. But I would say the same thing is true about other people's opinions of us. It's like, listen, if you don't love me and you don't know me, fuck off. Like, what am I going to do about it? I don't you don't know me.
Right.
So fine. Like, you can have an opinion of me and it makes no difference to me at all. But on the other end, I really want to hold myself accountable for the rest of my life to not forming an opinion about people I don't know.
I know.
It's way too complex out there. You know what I mean? It's way too much. So if I haven't met you, if I haven't felt what it's like to be in your presence, I'm just going to try to stay neutral. I'm going to try to just allow myself to stay in a neutral zone in that. And if I meet you and my intuition says like, you're not for me, then I'm going to listen to that. But if I meet you and regardless of what anybody else's opinion is of you, and I get a feeling that tells me that you're somebody that I want to know more about, I'm going to listen to that. I'm going to listen to my intuition, not the mob.
Right.
And I think that I have felt a lot more balanced since I've started taking that approach. Mainly because I'm going to try to do 3,000 of these episodes, and I'm for sure that we're going to get into a conversation that's going to make me feel like I am I'm going to be persecuted for something that I say somewhere along the way. And if I'm wrong in whatever I say, I will be excited to come and learn from that and understand that it was a blind spot for me and that I want to be the best version of myself. And part of doing that is putting yourself out there and learning from the mistakes that you made. It's one of the favorite things that I've had about being an entrepreneur is that you have to lean into that all the time. But on the other end of it, I also don't have social media and I don't watch the news. And if somebody was talking shit about me, I wouldn't know anyways. So what difference does it make? You know what I mean? And that's the other part of life is that if you just turn those dials down, you just turn off that station, then make all the noise you want.
Right.
You know what I mean? I can keep it quiet over here, even if the noise is loud over there. Like that is something that we do have control of. We just have to remember that was always our choice. We've just been giving it to other people for a long time that we thought that like we were that we were at the mercy of their environments. But we have to remember that we choose to walk into those environments. And any environment we walk into, that's an environment that we have to figure out how we own it for ourselves.
Choices.
Totally.
Yeah. It's the only thing we have a control over is what we choose to either think or say or do. And even when you have a bad traumatic situation, how you respond to those things is still a choice we make. And when you just make them in an unconscious fashion, you get probably different results than if you make those choices with a very conscious state of mind.
Mm-hmm. The way that we define self-awareness is to know why you make every decision you make every day.
Why?
But you make, who knows if they're correct about this, but they have social scientists have estimated that every human being makes somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 decisions a day. how many of those decisions do you think you know why you're making?
Not that many.
And if that's the case, all we have to remember is that any decision that we're making that any decision that's being made that we are not asking why is being made from our subconscious.
Totally.
Any decision that we are making where we understand why we're making that decision is being made from our conscious. And it's always why we start with a breath, is because breath is a great allegory, analogy. I don't know if I'm getting that right in this particular case, but it's a great one to remember that breathing is in your subconscious. Thank goodness. If all the whole time we were like, remember.
Did you go?
Yeah. But because it's in our subconscious, it's allowed to happen in the background while we allow our brain to focus on being present with one another or bringing our attention to wherever we're going. But man, when you get cranked up and something is stressful,
Yeah.
everybody knows that moment, like when you're trying to paint something and you can feel it building, or you're getting ready to go into a presentation, or you have to, you've got to make a sale. Otherwise you're going to get a consequence that everybody knows that in those moments, the number one thing that you can do to make sure that you maximize your presence is breathe. Just take the deepest breath that you possibly can, refocus yourself to whatever the moment is. But you can't do that from your subconscious. You have to bring it to your conscious mind, and you have to decide, this is a breath that I'm taking consciously because I have purpose with what this breath is going to mean for my nervous system and what it's going to mean for what I can try to deliver on the other side. We have the ability to do that. We know we have the ability to do that, but we just have to bring a heightened sense of awareness to the way that we're doing it. And I think that's really what self-awareness is all about, is just who we are once we know why we make those decisions is fascinating. The things that I'm sure of is I'm sure that I have a mind. I'm sure that I have a body. And I'm sure neither of those things is exactly me. I'm sure that I exist between those two things. And if I can get my mind to be calm and quiet, and I can get my body to be well in tune and exercised, that I can allow myself to show up much more often. But anytime I've ever had it where I feel out of place in my body or my mind is too loud, I constantly lose myself to performative behaviors.
Very well said. That was.
It's
Yeah.
It's taken a long time to be able to think about it with that level of clarity, but that level of clarity has brought a tremendous amount of peace to my life. To be able to, anytime I'm feeling out of whack, I just be like, okay, am I not working out enough? Am I allowing looping thoughts to come into my mind? Am I allowing myself to be stressed about something that I can't control? And if I can start to identify which one of those it is, you can start to bring action. First you have to understand your intention, then you have to understand your action. And once you bring attention and intention and action together, hopefully that's where manifestation comes from, right? It's like the mind is a really incredible thing. We could try to make a case for the fact that this isn't true, but I'm pretty sure that whatever you focus your mind on happens.
Yeah.
Including if you think about terrible shit.
Totally. Like we used to go mountain biking when mountain biking was like a new thing. And my friend Sean, we would ride in, it was called Salem Woods, and some good trails through there. And there was this really nasty black little pond that he just named Polio Pond because it just seemed so ominous, And, in every time we'd ride by it, we'd get each other all jacked up about Polio Pond. And eventually one day he went right in it. He just went head over bars right into Polio Pond. It's it's such a great example of you're riding by this thing, you're looking at it as you're, and it was a really narrow little single track trail. And I was like, yeah, well, we're saying it, we're looking at it, somebody's going in.
But you play golf?
What's that?
Have you
Yeah.
ever played golf?
Oh, sure.
Well, if you're focusing on that bunker, that's exactly
Oh,
where
yeah.
I don't want to go to that bunker. I got to get past that bunker. Where's it going to go? It's going to go right in the bunker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Golf is such a beautiful mental game in that way.
It
know,
is. It's
that
incredible.
It's definitely all. I mean, all sports are like that. I play basketball too, and it's like I don't know if anybody knows what the yips are. You ever heard of that before? Where you're like playing a sport, and it's like at the very last second when you're supposed to do something, all of a sudden you think about it too much, and it's just like,
Yes.
and then
Yeah,
you just like, and then you just throw up like a wild layup that doesn't even hit the backboard, or just something
Yeah.
like unbelievably embarrassing. And all sports teach us that. Teaches us this idea that it's like when you're doing something with your body, you really have to try to allow your mind to be fully present in whatever it is that you're asking your body to do. And when you're doing something with your mind, you really have to ask your body to come along from the journey. And if you want to try to find yourself, you gotta try to keep both of them in balance with one another. But sports are an excellent, it's such an excellent way for us to be able to understand the mind and to try to figure that out. In fact, earlier we were talking about peace and what would a peaceful world look like? What would
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's it's not a the world is never going to not have people who want violence, right? But what if we could just allow people who have a natural propensity towards violence to step into an octagon and like compete?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to build any more bombs, but like octagons all day long. Like, let's, you know what I mean? And like, if that's where you want to go, like, let's do it. And let's make competition. And let's, if we need to resolve something, maybe everybody put their best team out on the field and let's see how it goes. Let's figure this out without thinking that the least sophisticated form of communication that exists between all human beings is violence. Everyone knows this. Everyone knows that it's the least sophisticated version of being able to communicate because the end result of violence is more violence. It will never not be that. Ever. Ever. For any reason. Sales is a great example of this. If you go around the world and you look at how sales has become more sophisticated. Now, I happen to do training in what some people would consider one of the less sophisticated versions of selling in the automotive industry.
Okay.
Has a pretty bad reputation. Some of it's earned, some of it's not. But if you look around the world, like if you go to places that are struggling economically, what you'll find is that their form of sales tactics is very crude. It's like, buy now, come in, do this, grab you off the street, hold your hand until you buy, this thing at wherever you are, put you into a situation where they start braiding your hair, or braiding your kid's hair, or putting a bracelet on your wrist. And before you even know it, you just feel sort of guilted into needing to fulfill the process of what's going on.
Right.
That's very low. The tactics of those sales are very fear-based, right? They get short-term results, but people stop going to those areas where those things are sold unless you love that vibe. But most people would try to avoid that. Now, the highest level of sales is service. The highest degree of sales you can ever be in is to understand what the person that you're dealing with needs and to do your absolute best job to see if you are the person who can fulfill it. And if you are not the person who can fulfill it, your job is to bring them to the person who can best fulfill what they're going to do. Now, that may not give you that sale in that moment, but it is almost guaranteed that that moment will earn you future sales. Whether it's with that person or the people that they talk to as the person who gave them that experience.
Yeah.
That's the highest level of sophisticated sales that you can have, which is absolute honesty all the time and always to the benefit of the person in which you serve.
Yep.
Right?
I like to always say to my prospective customers that I want to be able to give them the resources to make the best decision they can, not to buy my product, but I want to make sure that everything that I do to engage a prospect is giving them the insights, the market landscape, answering the hard questions, taking them through all of the different scenarios that will allow them to make the best decision for them. And that's all you can do. Because you can you can deceive someone, but again, it's like that's a one-time thing.
Mm-hmm.
That only happens one time. That person, when they move from, they're at U.S. Bank and they go to Wells Fargo, they're not calling you up, right?
Right,
On
'cause
those deals.
Right, because you're talking about a trust-based
Yes.
system versus a fear-based or coercion-based system, and it's completely different.
Yeah. One you talk, one you listen.
Right. Yeah.
I walked into a wine store the other day to get the wine for this, and there was some dude there trying to sell the wine store, whatever it was, and he was just like, I mean, this guy did not take a breath. And I wanted to go over and put my hand on his shoulder and be like, just calm down, man. Just like ask them what kind of wine that they need and figure out whether you have the kind of wine that they're looking for. Just like, slow down for a second. Like just ask a couple questions. Just ask questions, and then everything will be okay. But if you think that you can talk fast enough to convince them to buy all of your inventory, I think you know.
Yeah.
That's great.
But it happens all the time, everywhere we go. All right, I don't know how much time we have left, but I'm going to take a guess just based on having done this a couple times that we're starting to get close to 3 hours.
Really?
With how long that we've been here. Yeah, I don't know how close, but I would guess that we're actually pretty close.
It is 9:12.
Okay, so we're
Are
close.
you kidding?
Yes.
All right, so
it
let's go
is.
into our final question. And this one,
I
this
run
is
to
the
the
question that we...
though?
Sorry.
Can I run to the bathroom?
Oh, of course you can. Yeah, you want to take a break for... Well, or do you want us to keep going, or would you...
You guys can keep going. I will be right back.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should I
We'll fill
wait,
you
though,
in.
to open the question?
Let's wait to open the question. We'll keep
Yeah.
our conversation going, and then we'll
Yeah.
have you jump back in when you get here.
Okay, that sounds good.
So surprised that this is what nearly 3 hours
Totally
feels like?
surprised. But again,
Yeah.
when you're in a flow state or you're present, there's no such thing as time.
It is true, really. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And I know that's cliche, but
no, I don't think it's cliche. I just think that time is a commodity that we should talk about a lot more often, right? Because I think that the binding truth between all of us is that what actually makes us equal is that we all have a limited amount of it.
and the older you get, the faster it goes.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
true. We all have a limited amount of time of it. But we also experience it completely different depending on where you are in your life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
Yep.
I agree.
You know the joke about the toilet paper?
No.
You know, the older you get, your life's like a roll of toilet paper. The older you get, the faster it goes.
Mm.
Yeah.
But there's something else on the other end of that I've experienced from watching, like getting older, but also watching my parents, is that there's also an ease that comes with age that is very attractive. You know what I mean? So I understand that there's a youthful part of being able to have youth and be able to spend your time and to feel like, time's moving slower. But there's a lot of anxiety that goes along with being a young person.
Yeah.
From puberty until probably, I don't know, mid-30s. It's very difficult to find yourself at that age because we don't have a structure of guidance, not a well-established structure of guidance. It's crazy, especially that we don't have a structure of guidance starting at puberty to actually explain what puberty is. And I can't speak for what it is for women, but you could tell me whether this seems accurate. And this is how I described it with my sons, at least, was that puberty is very complicated because it's as if you like were missing the sense of smell. and you couldn't smell anything for the first 15 years of your life. And then all of a sudden you go to bed and you have a dream about somebody that you had never thought of in that way before. And then you wake up the next day and you can smell everything. And you can smell it at like a 10 everywhere you walk, and everything is extremely smelly. And you don't know the difference between good smells and bad smells. It's just everything smells intense. And it's like we get an extra sense of sexuality that gets turned on at some point that you don't even realize how influential that is to the way that you feel about everything you're coming in contact with afterwards.
Yeah,
And yet there is absolutely no one to give guidance at that point.
it's true.
You know, I don't know what it is for young women, but for young men, it's a very complicated time in their lives, and it's the time where they need guidance to be able to say, okay, here's the deal. Now you can smell everything, but we got to contain that. And we got to contain that in a way that makes sure that you understand exactly what things are okay to smell and what things you need to have restraint with, and where you need to do this. But there's no structure around it. It's just sort of the wild, wild west of like, go for it.
Well,
Yeah.
and those things make you feel like you're an adult, so that you should know. But the reality is, I mean, even your brain isn't fully formed until you're 25. So there's lots of really good reasons to contain that, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And every adult that I've ever known struggles from the exact same thing, which is that we intellectually understand things before we can emotionally control them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a teenager, you might even intellectually understand what consent is, but you might not have had anybody teach you how to emotionally control, how you make sure that when your systems are feeling something that you don't understand how to control the intensity of,
Yeah.
that somebody has given you reasonable containers to be able to understand how you make sense of that. But if you just let it go, it obviously turns into the world that we have now, which is this sort of like unspoken chaos that happens because we're not just being honest with each other and recognizing that everybody's going through some sort of struggles that they've got to figure out. Not the same struggles, but just struggles that if we compassionately listen to each other and then we apply honesty to the other end of compassion, you can always come to a solution or a conclusion. But without compassion, it looks impossible. You know, if it's just about being right or being wrong, there's a lot of space in between those two places. Shall we?
The purple envelope.
The final one.
Oh, what is your potential?
That's a big one. I thought this was a big one.
We try to get bigger as we go.
Okay, I have something. This is, I don't know if it's like jinxing it, because maybe it's like the unscripted room, like many months ago, maybe it was not okay to talk about because you never know if it's gonna turn out, you know? But I have this dream of building an art incubator called Soul Shell. Soul, it's like social. It's like social, but it's soul. But it's a shell for the soul, right? Because there's so much of the art world that's like, as you said, fear-based. Like every industry,
Right.
It's like you're catering to like the tastes of like the tastemakers or whatever it is, but it's like you're constantly being evaluated and judged for what you're doing, right? And
I
it's
love
like
this idea.
I don't want that. Like I don't want art to be that way. I want art to be like
Free.
authentic, open, vulnerable.
Right.
A place where people can come together and be like, I feel that too. Like we're not alone. Like we're just all out here like feeling this stuff.
So how can we help you reach your potential? Because that's a beautiful vision. And now you've made it real by speaking it out loud. Now we all need to support you and help you figure it out.
Oh man. I mean, I feel like at some point it would be like inside a building, people would come, like there would be artists selected every, quarter or whatever to come and make stuff. And then like it would be a space that would also be open to just come hang out and just have like open conversations. I mean, this has been really cool because I'm like, wow, like people are having conversations, people are
Yeah.
connecting
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
strangers, and yet I feel like I know you somewhat more now.
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, we hung out
Yeah.
for 3
Yeah.
hours,
Yeah.
you know, just like
Yeah.
talked about life.
That's a powerful observation that we knew each other before this, so there's a little bit of bonding, but the rest of it, we didn't know each other before we walked into this room.
Right.
And I would legitimately trust everyone in this room.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like that's a lot to earn from each other in a short amount of time, but it was because we gave each other our full attention.
Mm.
And you created a platform. Like you created this room where people like join the conversation. Like it's a round table.
Yeah.
Like that's by design, right? Like you don't have a head at the table. You have a round table where everybody can speak, like King Arthur. Like it's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
everybody's
true.
kind of equal
Yeah.
at the table. And
Well, when you build
Yes.
your incubator too, like when you do that, it's so the round table is 100% intentional. The way that we all have equal footing in the conversation is 100% intentional. So is every color you see in here. So is every piece of art that is in every place that you look. So is that thing over there that puts out a smell that is exactly what we want you to smell in this room.
okay, what is it right now?
So is the color of the curtains. Everything. When you get your chance to build your incubator, it's about understanding the basis of what you need to do, which is what you have, and then it's about loving the attention to detail.
Mhm.
I'm not responsible for any of this. I have a business partner who's a genius at doing this kind of stuff. And so I just say, here's the vision of what I want to try to execute. Can you create the look and feel? And he comes in and he takes care of all of it. And I am so grateful to him every single day. Our whole team is. We all know that he is the genesis of all look and feel. And we just have tremendous gratitude for every member of our team that knows how to do something well. I see your vision. I think that it's excellent. And
Thank you.
one of the things
I
that
love it too.
one of the things that we are going to do from the unscripted room, but kind of from our larger organization, is that anybody who comes through these podcasts, we're going to spend our time trying to promote you, not our brand or anything else, because we believe that the logical consequence of promoting people that we like and that have great vision is that they will also want to be a part of our larger vision over time. So we don't need to do anything other than promote people we like, and it will end up eventually allowing us to grow along with them. But we're going to stay in touch because we'll figure out a way,
Yeah.
as you start to allow that to take next steps, we'll build a coalition of people who want to help people fulfill their vision. And there's a lot of people out there who would love to support people making sure that they live their dreams.
Yeah.
We just got to make sure that there's a mechanism to allow it to happen.
Yep.
But thank you for sharing your dream.
Thank you for hearing me out. I went to a residency that I felt was I was fearful there, and I could not make stuff there.
Yeah.
I couldn't make art there because I was just afraid.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't do this. Like, I need to leave. I need to go. It's an amazing opportunity, and yet I walked away because it just didn't align with what I believe art to be, which I can't be fearful making art. I can't be like, I'm stressed out and make amazing things. No, it's not going to happen, right? I'm making amazing things when I'm like, like, like,
Yeah. You can't be in flow and afraid at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a bunch of friends who went to mass art. They're much younger than me, and I met them, I don't know, 15 years ago, maybe more. And they're such an incredible group of people. Like when you said like an incubator, I just thought of all of them. There's, Zach Lanou is like a photographer, and Gina DeWolf was doing textile and leather stuff, and Jordan Panadosi and Rebecca were painters, and these like little groups of like there was a group of probably 12 of them that were friends, and little groups would somebody would bail out of their space on Newbury Street, and they'd have a friend say, yeah, this guy paid his lease and he bailed out early or whatever. And so it's just sitting there for 4 months. And so they'd like a group of them would move in and start painting and,
That's
like they'd
awesome.
like set up shop. So I just
love
think
that.
like, I think of the power of inspiration that they shared with each other to create. It was so powerful. And
Yeah.
just, I feel like all artists need that.
Yeah.
They need a community like that.
Yeah.
Because like it's honestly so lonely sometimes.
Yes, yes.
It's like you're in your like little
Yes.
studio and you're like,
Yeah.
True,
like, it's a
true
void.
creativity
Yeah.
requires
So good.
isolation.
It does. But like for long stretches of like, I feel like I've moved so much that don't have like this community, what you're talking about, like a group of people. And I feel like this dream is just me trying to find like people to come make stuff with me. And I'm like, that's great.
That-
Like, I love that.
You don't,
like
yeah.
it's,
Sometimes we think that something that's calling us, like it's not calling us for the right reasons, but anytime you're being called towards community, it's almost always the right reason.
yeah, I think so. I think so.
And one thing about creativity and art is that it does require isolation, which means that it's worthwhile to practice how to be alone without being lonely.
Mm.
But that's no substitute for allowing your life to feel alone, right? Like sharing is, authentic connection has got to be the richest opportunity that we all have. Sometimes it means you got to go down to the studs and you got to bring your connections down to as low as you can until you can figure out that you're rebuilding them into authentic connections with people, because you can also get superficial connections that drag you down. But your dream is awesome and you should definitely pursue it. And
Thank you.
I'm sure that as soon as you start putting it out there more often, I'm sure you're going to see, like you were talking about earlier, it's like until you write it down, you speak it out loud, you bring your intentions to the forefront, and then you start looking for actions to find you. You know what I mean? You'll see that you'll walk by a space that will inspire you. You'll see you start talking to other artists that bring you into that. It's going to be a great experience for you.
yeah.
I have 2 people I want to introduce you to
There you go.
after this.
Amazing.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Okay. See.
Yeah, I would love to introduce you to like Jordan and Rebecca. They're
Yeah,
like
that
Rebecca
would be
was down in
awesome.
Louisiana for a while, and they got together, and they're like, "You're here in the North Shore?"
I'm in Haverhill.
Oh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
So not
definitely.
far.
We will
Definitely.
Minutes.
we will
That'd be
make
fun.
sure that Trevor gives everybody email addresses so that
Yes.
because one of the
That would be
things that I do think that happens is when you have these hopefully when you have these experiences around the table is that there is a bonding that happens, and that bonding should feel sacred. Because you had this experience with each other. We all had this experience, which means that we now have the opportunity to be able to promote one another, which is one of the greatest things that you can do in life, is to be generous with no intentions of needing anything in return. Just generosity in and of itself is the gift that we're all looking for, right? Like I don't know that there is a better feeling than that. I think that might be the highest feeling that you can have. So why would we not pursue it at the highest level that we can?
Yeah.
Okay,
I love it.
for the two of you, what do you think your potential is? What do you, as you look at your life, where do you feel like your potential goes from here?
I think your potential is whatever you believe it can be.
Okay.
And that's why, what we choose to think and say and do is really, really important, because that's builds your belief system, and that's going to translate to what you think is usually, right? And it's not necessarily a fact, but if you think something is, that's what you're believing, whether it's fact or not. That's your perception.
So what's your idea of inspiration for yourself right now?
So it's sort of a big one, but being executed in a bite-sized piece, I guess. I want to help change the world to be a better place. And one of the ways I'm doing this is now pivoting from corporate life to some retirement years I've greatly enjoyed to feathering in now some nonprofit work
Yeah.
where my skills can be hopefully of value to help them achieve their mission. And in whatever small way I can help with that, it's the pebble in the pond, maybe, the ripple effect.
We were having a conversation about identity the other day, and it dawned on us as we were having the conversation that it is so important to identify with what you're capable of. Right? Like if there was one thing that you try to build your identity around, it's how your skills. Because that's the truth. It's, what you can execute is who you are. So the fact that you have built all of these skills that now you can use to be able to execute on behalf of something that you believe in, what a gift. What a gift for the people who get your skills, and what a gift for you that if you accumulated those skills in ways that maybe weren't exactly the way that you wanted it to go,
Yeah.
that you now get to turn that around and turn that into incredible positivity by using those skills to make sure that they're,
Yeah, so I've joined a board, and I think that's doing some board work at that other level is, I think it's going to be fun.
it will be fun. Yeah. Yeah. I think work is so much fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it gets lost all the time that people, think about work as being something that's a burden on their time. And I struggle to find anything that I enjoy more than working because it's just such an expression of who we are, especially when it's creative work, right? Like it really, that allows you to be able to feel that a little bit more. But work in general is a gift, because you're never not learning something when you're working.
It is, but I've got to say, you really have to be aligned, emotionally and intellectually with what you're doing, because I feel like I've been a good case study for that being out of alignment. Like head and heart were not aligned.
Yeah.
So coming to work, for many years, didn't feel inspiring. I didn't wake up and go, yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, there was times where I was excited about a particular account but I shared this with Brett when I came in and when we chatted. I've got, an idea I've been working on for about 1.5 years, and it's for men. Like I feel like in my life, I've seen women do a really good job of creating organizations and groups that support each other and promote each other, and especially up here in like Newburyport, just through my girlfriend Lisa. She's just such a great manifester. She creates, she believes, sees things, and makes them happen. And she's got a lot of great resources, other women's groups. So I wanted to create something for men that is like a support community. It's almost like, when I use the word fraternity, it has like kind of bad connotations because you think of like Animal House. But it's the way I'd like to make this work is bring men together in these, I'll call them retreats. It could be a weekend, could be longer. And I want to get people out in nature. I want to get people out away from their phones, away from screens, and learn and build some basic skills in the outdoors, like, being able to survive overnight, building a little debris shelter, putting together a simple tent, packing your own gear, being responsible and accountable for everything that happens, giving men guidelines to work together. And maybe it's a hike, but we have topics that we're going to kind of touch on. And it kind of works the way you set this up, where you're not going to be forced to participate. You're not, you don't have to answer these questions on a test. But I want to build experiences for men, with men, in the outdoors, really kind of connecting back to their instincts and their nature, and finding ways that they can support each other, beyond just the event, but ongoing, so that maybe some of these people want to come back and be leaders or group leaders or mentors. And I really think it'll be great for young men too, who are disassociated from a lot of the things that we've all been sharing, like riding bikes. And I got to do all this cool shit when I was a kid and stuff I probably shouldn't have been doing, firing around the woods. But I have found inspiration in nature. I've found healing. I've found answers. I've found myself. I've found true connection to my higher self in nature. And I think ultimately I want to try to help connect men to that on some level.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's something that it just keeps, we talked about it, and you were very generous with your, ideas that you offered. And I just keep, everywhere I look, there's like a sign, from somewhere. Every week, 2 people kind of pop out of the woods and are like, oh, hey, I've got this, friend that just blah, blah, blah. And it's just been kind of uncanny. Like it's like, to me, it's a sign that I have a responsibility now. Like, I put in the time with the business plan, and now I need to like figure out, all right, get this in beta, go do a couple of these.
Yeah.
Well,
and reevaluate and refine, and so that's I think that's my mission, and I gotta get it done. So
you and I talked about this at length last time, but I just want to say that I think that you're an amazing person to do what it is that you've set your mission for, because you are, I've now sat with you for 6 or 7 hours, and you are gentle and a man. And I cannot overstate how important I believe that is to the prosperity of the world, is that we have more men who are gentle and men.
Yeah.
We don't need to break down masculinity. We need to make sure that it's okay to be gentle and masculine, that those two things can be the same person, and to have somebody who embodies that, to be able to lead other people, especially young men, into understanding how they can become gentle and men, is so important, because there will be nothing that could have a profound effect on the future of the world than having gentle fathers.
yeah.
So thank you for, having a vision and having that mission. And I said it to you privately, and I'll say it publicly: whatever I can do, whatever resources I can give you, whatever support you need, you have it from me, because I not only believe in it, as a friend, but I also believe in it as a father. I think that I would want my sons to go to something like this. I think it would be an amazing experience to be able to tap into something where you can feel okay in your body, because I do think that there's a certain part of being a young man right now where it's very confusing, where you're like, I don't really like the way that I see masculinity in some ways that it's presented, but I also don't want to hate myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I still want to be okay being everything that I am and being that, but I just need somebody to give me some guidance as to what it could look like to be gentle and be a man. And I applaud you for having the vision, and I think you're the perfect person to be able to do it. And you're a giant, so that only makes it that much better that you can do that.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. It's very generous, and I mean, I owe a lot of the nature side. I owe it to my dad. In my family. That's my mannerisms, how I approach the world and other people, has a lot to do with my own father, who's still alive, 85, and still kicking ass.
Yeah.
But I've often thought about the term gentleman.
Yeah.
And I always think of my father for the reasons that you're, or for in the same way that you're describing me. So it's really,
Yes.
it's really interesting.
Yep. And I was raised by a gentleman, and I'm eternally grateful for it. And I hope that my sons would describe themselves as being raised by a gentleman. And
That's
I think
great.
that we just need more of it. I'll say for this, I finished every podcast this season so far with the same thing, but I want my potential, but our potential to be peace. I think we're capable of this. I think that peace is something that in all of our lifetimes has seemed elusive to us, as if it was a pipe dream, as if it was something that we could talk about, but was never something that we were capable of. We are capable of it. We're capable of it as individuals, and we were 100% capable of it as a group, as a community, as a society, because I've met so many people, and all of those people that I have met, like there's the occasional few, but the vast majority of people that I meet are beautiful people who sometimes are trapped in shitty patterns that were taught to them by someone else. Very rarely have I ever run into somebody who I thought was someone who did not like humanity and was willing to be cruel to humanity for their own pleasure. I have met them, and it seems like most of them are running the world right now.
Yeah.
But it's fragile. It's a weak system.
Yeah. It is.
Peace is possible, but we have to remember that if we want peace, it means that we have to be at peace, and we have to come at our solution with 100% peace, because that is the only way that we're able to overcome what we feel every day and what we're experiencing. So thank you for not knowing each other and coming into a situation where there was a lot of unknown to what this experience was going to be. And thank you for being so peaceful and so lovely to each other and so lovely to me and to the environment and to what we're trying to build here. I really look forward to building a relationship with all three of you and figuring out how I can support you and what your dream is. And we really need your support in trying to figure out how we continue to create conversations that allow people to understand that this is where humanity can come to life, which is talking. We can just talk to each other. We can just have conversations where we talk more about the way that we think than what we think.
Yeah.
Because the way that we think is actually what manifests the future that we want. What we think is something that is extremely malleable at any given moment based on what propaganda is getting us to think about that thing at that moment. But the way that we think, that is our own. That's our code. That is our DNA. That's the way that that we're going to get stuff done. So thank you for the time and the attention and the opportunity. I really appreciate it. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else in the world other than right here with the three of you right now having this conversation. I think it's a privilege, and I appreciate you.
Thank you. It
Thank
was
you.
a pleasure.
It was a great,
Thank
great
you
session.
to everybody. Yeah.
Awesome.
It was great to meet you guys.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well,
Likewise.
that's a wrap for the Unscripted Room Season 1, Episode 7. We're done.